To think an S-rank hunter would stand in the same ranks as a bunch of weak C ranks, doing nothing but menial tasks like chasing dogs and catching cats just to get by. Because even though he's an S rank, Jyn is terrified of losing his life. On top of that, he was afraid of the intimate contact required for treatment, so he turned down all the major guilds to live in obscurity forever. But even so, Jyn still needed enough income to pay his rent, and to cover his living expenses, he applied to join a small C-rank guild to make a living. Name: Jyn Hyosiop. Gender: male. Classification: S-rank guide. Andante, skeptical, rested his chin on his hand and looked straight at him, asking, "You want to apply to our guild?" Hearing this, the young man in front of him grew restless, thinking to himself, "This is hard to believe, but it's still an important interview. I can't afford to mess it up." Immediately, the freelance S-rank guide, Jyn Hyosiop, nodded in confirmation. "Yes." A moment later, the man reminded him coolly, "But you're an S-rank guide." Jyn replied nonchalantly, "I know." Andante warned him seriously. "This team is made up entirely of C-rank espers, you know." Jyn, uninterested, cut him off. "How long are you going to keep asking about this?" Hearing this, the stern commander replied, "Andante, commander of the C-rank on-air guild, until I truly believe you're being serious." Then, he raised an eyebrow, exuding the pressure of a leader. "I really want to know why you're applying here." Andante bluntly listed off a series of better places. As an S-rank guide, you could easily be recruited by the best guilds like the National Security Agency, for example. So why do you want to work at our guild? Seeing this, Jyn pursed his lips and glanced at him thoughtfully. He could only give a bitter smile at his own ironic situation. It's not hard to understand why he's asking this. This is like a student getting a perfect score on the CSAT but refusing to apply to any university at all. A moment later, Jyn took a deep breath and bravely stated his own request. "The reason is, I have a condition." The man asked curiously, "What kind of condition?" He hesitantly stated his desire. "I only want to perform basic treatment." After hearing that, Andante nodded, understanding. So that's it." Without hesitation, he smiled and leaned back. "Is that so?" "That's understandable." Andante looked at Jin's face, but he still felt a sense of indescribable hesitation. It's true that he's an S-rank guide, but the fact that he doesn't want to fulfill the full responsibilities of a guide is also a bit concerning. But then he sighed and got straight to the point. "Why did you choose our guild? Our work isn't like that of a normal guild. In fact, our most recent mission," Andante revealed honestly, stunning Jyn, "was to find a cat." He feigned a weary sigh. "It was a really mischievous cat. It gave us a lot of trouble." Just then, Andante gave a self-mocking smile. "Our guild is basically an odd-job center, so there won't be much for you to do here." Jyn stood firm with his initial decision. "But you're still looking for a guide, aren't you?" A second later, Andante admitted his team's severe staff shortage. "That's right. That's because even though we don't take on dangerous missions, we still accumulate toxins in our bodies when we use our abilities." Hearing this, Jyn stated confidently, "If that's the case, then just holding hands should be enough for me to guide you all." The man quickly agreed, acknowledging the young man's superior rank. "That's right. That's exactly it. You're an S-rank guide, after all." Meanwhile, Jyn anxiously wondered to himself, will this really be okay? Next, Andante hesitantly brought up the financial issue. "But I'm sure you understand that we can't pay you the average salary of an S-rank guide. We only make enough to get by." Jyn didn't say much and accepted directly. "That's fine." As soon as he finished, the man looked at him with a questioning gaze. "Even so, you must have an expected salary, right? Feel free to propose a number to me." Faced with such generosity, Jyn repeated doubtfully in his head, "Feel free?" He thought cautiously, "Propose a number?" Next, Jyn timidly proposed a number. 3.1 million. But internally he was struggling fiercely. "This is the absolute minimum I set for myself. If it's any lower than this, I won't be able to cover my rent and monthly loan payments." He anxiously asked himself, "But is 3.1 million too high for what they can pay?" It probably is. After all, I'm only doing things like holding hands, hugging, and at most, kissing. 3.1 million is probably a bit too much. Just then, Andante cheerfully agreed. "That's a reasonable number. You can start tomorrow." Seeing that he was hired so easily, Jyn was overjoyed, his eyes widening. "Really?" Looking at that radiant expression, the man marveled to himself. An S-rank guide willing to work for a C-rank association? It's unbelievable. A second later, Andante quickly took out some papers to seal the deal. We can sign the contract right now. I'll introduce you to the others. I'll expect you at work tomorrow. Jyn bowed politely. It's my pleasure. Thank you, sir. Just then, Andante suddenly asked a question that made the atmosphere quite awkward. Have you decided who you'll choose as your binding partner? Jyn asked blankly. My binding partner? Andante elaborated on the rule for guides among ability users. You see, it's so an Esper can protect you. Most guides in the association choose an Esper as a partner for their protection. Jyn answered with genuine naivety. I haven't thought about that. I didn't even know it was something I was supposed to do. Hearing this, he generously pointed towards the Espers lounging on a pile of documents. Well then, you can choose anyone you like. None of the Espers in our guild have their own guide, and no one has marked them yet. Actually, no matter who you choose, and even though you can only perform basic treatment, I'm sure they'd be overjoyed. After thinking about the job, Jyn wondered, do I really need protection in a guild that just looks for lost cats? Without hesitating, he frankly refused. I don't think I need a binding partner. Hearing this decisive refusal, Andante's hand suddenly froze. He grew pensive, not uttering a word. Then Andante looked up and stared straight at him. He questioned, baffled. You don't need one? At that moment, Jyn was bewildered and felt a chill run down his spine. That's right. Why did his expression change so suddenly? However, Andante repeated in a deep, heavy voice, You don't need a protector? Jyn broke out in a nervous sweat. Did I do something wrong? His shimmering golden eyes remained fixed on him. Afraid of offending his new boss, a flustered Jyn scrambled for a solution. Maybe I should just pick someone... Anyone, ... Just then, Andante's lips curled into a slight smirk as he slyly muttered, How interesting. What a foolish thought. Jyn was dumbfounded, not understanding what was happening. What? He calmly changed the subject. It's nothing. If that's how you feel, then you don't need to choose, Mr. Jyn Hyosup. Then, Andante elegantly extended his hand in a formal welcome. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to our guild. I am Commander Andante, a C-class Esper. I look forward to working with you. Jyn nodded, feeling suspicious inside. Thanks. Is a binding partner really that important? Why did he react like that? He clenched his fist and decided to keep his curiosity to himself. But I can't just ask him directly. If I do that, he'll see how clueless I am. Jyn comforted himself. Oh well, at least I have a job now, so that's one thing settled. After looking around the quiet office, Jyn was satisfied with his choice. And for now, this is good enough. Scene change, meeting room. Andante made a formal introduction. All right, everyone, listen up. This is Jyn Hyosup, the S-Class guide I mentioned yesterday, he announced enthusiastically. He is our newest member. Please give him a warm welcome. At that, Jyn bowed his head in a friendly greeting. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Suddenly, an excited man shot up from his seat. Hearing the commotion, Jyn flinched and opened his eyes. As he looked up, he met the ecstatic gaze of a red-haired man. I can't believe it, he asked enthusiastically. Commander, you're not kidding, are you? The energetic red-haired man promoted his identity. Key Class Esper Sexy. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Sexy. Faced with such over-the-top enthusiasm, Jyn shyly requested, It's a pleasure to meet you too. But could you maybe back up a little? He was too absorbed, proposing, Can I call you Hyung? Jyn was speechless and reluctantly accepted. He's completely ignoring what I said. Sure, call me whatever you want. Meanwhile, Sexy asked excitedly, Hyung, are you really an S-Class guide, for real? Jyn replied gently, I can show you my ID card if you'd like. A moment later, Sexy started rambling about the guild's history. It's unbelievable. The thing is, our commander hasn't hired a single guide for the past 2 years, so I thought he wasn't planning on hiring anyone at all, Sexy exclaimed in amazement. And now he brings back an S-Class guide. Now do you see why I'm so shocked? He looked completely incredulous, then turned to the commander. Are you sure our guild even deserves a guide this good? Without hesitation, Andante shrugged smugly. If he wants to work with us, who am I to refuse? Next, Sexy yelled indignantly. Huh? Weren't you recruited? Why would an S-Class guide like you want to join a terrible guild like this? Just then, Coda sighed. Sexy. As soon as he finished, Sexy suddenly burst out laughing. His attitude annoyed Jyn. A few seconds later, Sexy lowered his voice suspiciously and interrogated him. Are you a spy, Hyung? At that moment, Andante smiled and winked. Sexy. Why would a spy need to infiltrate our terrible guild? After hearing that, he was stunned. Then what's the reason? A second later, Jyn gently stepped forward to explain. I don't know if the commander told you, but, he declared wearily, I'm working here, on the condition that I will only perform basic treatments. Hearing this, Sandy's face lit up with a smug grin. He's smirking. So, after listing all those intimate acts, you only want to do things like hold hands, hug, or kiss, is that it? Sandy then asked cockily, So why wouldn't you want to move on to the more advanced treatment? Most guides like to do that sort of thing during work, you know. Andante clicked his tongue, cutting Sandy off. Sandy, don't ask such sensitive questions on his first day. He pouted, arguing, What's the big deal? We're all men here, you know, he added suggestively. But for espers and guides, things are a world apart, Sandy exclaimed in disbelief. Oh, come on, all men think the same way. As soon as he finished speaking, Andante raised a scornful eyebrow, making him sulk a little. That's just what perverted espers like you think. After the atmosphere calmed down, Sandy stubbornly asked for the reason anyway. Why did you choose our guild out of all the other C-rank guilds? Most guides turn us down because they see no opportunity for growth here. Without much fuss, Jyn answered calmly, It's nothing grand. He confessed his true feelings. I just don't want to work in a dangerous environment. That's all. Hearing this, all the espers were completely stunned. What? Looking around the messy room, Jyn remarked with satisfaction, I find the work environment here quite pleasant and safe. And I like that. At that, Andante suddenly burst out laughing. He clapped him on the shoulder and proudly declared, If that's the reason you came here, then you've come to the right place. A second later, Andante promised firmly, I can assure you, this is the safest guild for you to work at. He smiled, then turned to emphasize his guarantee, I swear it. Espers are individuals who possess supernatural abilities. They are classified into 6 ranks based on their capabilities, S, A, B, C, D, and F. Guilds are formed for the purpose of gathering espers. To conquer dungeons, each guild consists of espers from C rank to S rank. Guilds themselves are also classified from S rank to C rank. S rank guilds are extremely rare. They consist of globally renowned S-rank espers and A-rank espers with unique abilities. A-rank guilds are no less impressive, comprised mainly of A-rank espers, with the exception of the commander. B-rank guilds operate within a designated territory and consist of A and B-rank espers. And finally, there are the C-rank guilds, which operate only in small areas. They are composed of B and C-rank espers. As this is the most common type of guild, their capabilities and missions are also very diverse. Some guilds conquer low-level dungeons, while others don't even bother touching a single dungeon. And the guild considered the worst of the worst is, looking at the guild room, Jyn sighed to himself, the guild he had just joined. Oh, naip. He frowned in frustration. I've been here for a week now. But there's nothing to do. When the commander said this was the safest guild, I never imagined he meant it so literally. 4 of the espers went on an overseas vacation right after my introduction, and the other members have just been lazing around all week. Jyn stared at the commander typing away in the corner of the room. Meanwhile, the commander has been glued to his computer all day. At first, I thought he was doing something really important, because his expression looked so serious, but recently, I discovered that he's just been extremely focused on playing games. He quickly realized it was no wonder they hadn't hired a guide in 2 years. If the espers just sit around doing nothing, how could any toxins possibly build up? A moment later, Jyn began to worry about his own fate. In other words, Onape doesn't really need to hire a guide. But that's not good for me. He grabbed a broom, put on a mask, and started cleaning. I could get fired within a month if I just keep sitting around like this. I have to prove that I'm useful. Just then, Sandy asked curiously, Hyung, what are you doing? Jyn calmly replied, Cleaning. He tilted his head, looking at him like he was a strange creature. From another planet. Why, are you a neat freak or something? Jyn replied nonchalantly, no. A moment later, Sandy had an idea and eagerly suggested, If you're bored, want to go hang out with me? I know all the best restaurants and cafes around here. He flatly refused. We're on the clock. He pouted and whined, Oh, come on. Nobody's doing any work anyway. Jyn remained firm in his refusal. Even so, we shouldn't leave the office. Hearing the commotion, Andante suddenly spoke up. Hayosiop, you can stop cleaning now. Without another word, he stood up, put on his jacket, and cheerfully hinted, "We just got a new mission. Want to come with me?" "Yes!" Hearing this, Jyn immediately perked up. His eyes lit up as if he'd struck gold. "Yes, of course!" Finally, something to do. Andante gave the order cheerfully. "Then get your things ready." "We're leaving right away," Jyn replied loudly. "Yes, Commander." Seeing his obedient demeanor, he couldn't help but smile to himself. Just then, Andante remembered something and turned back to add, "Oh, I almost forgot. Hey, Sandy, we have to find that cat again?" Just then he yelled in frustration, "What? Why? Didn't we already bring it back safely last time?" The other man calmly explained, "I think there's a hole in the fence, so it got out again." "Well, that's what happens when its owner is so careless." "What can we do?" Sandy jumped up angrily. "Oh my God, this is such a pain. I'm allergic to cats." But Andante's cold command made his face darken. "Then take your medicine first. We're heading out. Good luck." Afterwards, Sandy angrily cursed, "Get lost, Commander." The scene shifts to a private daycare. Jyn wondered blankly, "Our job is—" as the overwhelming sound of children playing echoed around him. "Miss, I'll be the daddy and you can be the mommy, okay?" "I don't wanna. Noon is crying again." "Babysitting?" Meanwhile, he enthusiastically gestured, "Shake it harder, Hyosiop." Jyn hesitated before replying, I'm doing it." Andante excitedly urged, "Harder!" With a grimace, Jyn shook it continuously without stopping. Just then, an innocent little girl noticed Jyn and slowly approached him. The moment he saw that, he quickly took a picture. "Perfect!" After finishing the job, Andante turned and asked, "This is the last photo, right? Isn't it?" The teacher blushed, smiling brightly. "Yes, that's right. Thank you so much for coming to help us." Andante replied politely, "It was nothing." Then he gently approached to report, "The job is done. Hyosiop, you did a great job." Jyn replied politely, "Thank you, sir." Andante then squinted, teasing him. "You're so skilled with that toy. You look like you've done this a lot." Hearing this, Jyn was startled and snapped, "What do you think you're doing?" "There are children here." Andante laughed, calming him down. "I was just joking." He sternly corrected him. "Even as a joke, you shouldn't say that." Seeing his shy demeanor, he smiled affectionately, delighted. Just then, Andante politely said, "We'll send you the photos tomorrow." The teacher enthusiastically suggested, "You two worked so hard today. Why don't you stay for dinner?" However, he skillfully declined and casually pulled Jyn away by the hand. "Thank you for the invitation, but we're busy tonight. Goodbye." After they went outside, Andante stopped and asked, "So where should we go now?" Jyn was stunned, not understanding. "What?" He casually suggested, "It's dinner time. Let's go eat somewhere nice." "Is there anything you'd particularly like to eat?" Jyn looked at his watch, flustered. "Actually," he answered honestly, "I was planning to eat at home." Hearing this, Andante pried curiously, "Is someone waiting for you at home?" Jyn quickly corrected him, "No, I live alone." He seized the opportunity and made his offer, "Then why not have dinner with me?" As soon as he finished, Jyn asked in surprise, "What?" Jyn turned doubtfully to look at Andante's face. Seeing the fish hadn't taken the bait, he continued to explain, "To be honest, it's been a while since I've had the chance to eat dinner with someone. I always eat at home alone, so I get a little lonely." Jyn wondered about his relationship with the other members. "But don't you eat with the other members of the guild?" Andante sighed, lamenting, "They don't like eating with me. It's because I'm their commander." Next, he put on a miserable expression. "I'm starting to feel so lonely I can't stand it anymore. I even heard that people who eat dinner alone have a higher risk of depression." After hearing this, Jyn asked in alarm, Is that really true?" At this moment, Andante continued sadly, stirring Jin's compassion, "I don't have any friends here since I'm from somewhere else, and I'm not really the outgoing type." He cunningly pretended to back down. "But don't worry about it. You must feel really awkward being asked out to dinner by your boss when you've only just started." "I'm sorry." Faced with his boss's pitiful state, Jin's heart softened. It's okay." He scratched his head and hesitantly invited, Would you like to have dinner with me?" Hearing this, Andante's eyes lit up. "Are you serious?" Jyn blushed and confirmed, "Yes, I am." Seeing this, he immediately made a bold request. Andante looked straight into his eyes and gave a meaningful smile. "Let's eat at your place." Jyn froze in bewilderment for 5 seconds. "What?" Scene changed to the front of Jin's small apartment. He fumbled with the keypad, bewildered. How did things end up like this? Jyn stood anxiously at his door, wondering, when I agreed to have dinner together, I never imagined it would be at my place. The moment the door opened and Jyn stepped inside, Andante had already slipped inside, startling him. Jyn stared blankly, confused. Just then, their eyes accidentally met. To break the awkward atmosphere, he went in and took off his overcoat. My place is a bit small. Anyway, please come in. Andante took a look around and then commented, You're right. Honestly, it's pretty humble for an S-rank guide like you. Jyn frowned and retorted, What does my house have to do with my rank? He sighed and explained, Of course it's related. With your S-rank abilities, you could live in a luxury hotel if you wanted to. At that, Jyn nonchalantly replied, Only guides who can perform all the treatments get rich like that. This is just fine for me. Hearing this, Andante looked around, stunned. He slowly walked towards the table in front of him, then tilted his head up, glancing at everything inside. After a thorough inspection, taking in every corner of the simple room, he mused, There's only one chair, one cup, a single bed, and a dining table for one. It's understandable why he wouldn't want to invite guests over. He probably never even considered it. A second later, Andante placed a hand on the table and tilted his head, probing, You just moved in, didn't you? Surprised by the sharp deduction, Jyn asked, How did you know? This is an old apartment, and most of the furniture is old too. Then Andante analyzed smugly, You can tell just by looking. Even though the room and the furniture are old, all of the home appliances are brand new. He continued to guess about his current living situation. Also, it seems like this is your first time living alone, isn't it? Andante calmly looked deep into his eyes. Faced with such a sharp gaze, Jyn nodded in acknowledgement. Yes, that's right. As soon as he finished speaking, he went into the kitchen to prepare a meal. Let me make something simple for you. However, Andante firmly stopped him. No need. Hearing this, Jyn was confused, not understanding what was happening. After looking at the only chair in the room, he crossed his arms and decided, There's only one chair. We can't eat together. You should just eat by yourself. Seeing Andante about to leave, Jyn was stunned. What? But before he could finish, Andante smiled reassuringly. Don't worry about me. Skipping a few meals won't kill me. Then, Andante smiled brightly and said goodbye. You go ahead and eat. I'm leaving now. Just then, Jyn stood there dumbfounded in the middle of the room and muttered to himself, Then why did he even come all the way here? It seems like he just wanted to see what my place was like. At that moment, his eyes widened as he realized. Wait a minute. Then Jyn confronted him directly. You were curious about where I live, weren't you? A second later, Andante stopped, let out a small smile, and admitted, So my purpose has been exposed. He turned around slyly and confirmed, That's right. I wanted to know what your house looks like. After hearing that, Jyn sighed and explained, If that was the case, you could have just told me. I would have gladly invited you over. Andante's tone suddenly changed as he asked, Is that so? Meanwhile, Jyn was still naively nodding eagerly. Of course. It's no trouble at all. Just then, he suddenly reached out and decisively pulled Jyn towards him. At this action, Jin's eyes widened in shock. A moment later, Andante leaned in close and warned, If that's the case, it could become a big problem. Seeing the other man standing too close, he gently pushed him away and asked hesitantly, Why would you say that? Andante explained with a suggestive tone, You shouldn't carelessly bring strangers home just because they ask. Jyn innocently tried to argue back, But you're not a stranger. Without hesitation, he scoffed and reminded him about the nature of an esper. We've only known each other for a week, and you already consider me a friend? I'm happy that you trust me. But have you forgotten that I'm an esper? Even though we live in a society where guides are protected now, Andante leaned close to his ear, whispering words that were both threatening and alluring. But no one can ever know what might happen when you let an esper into your home. At that moment, he held out a hand and proposed a hypothetical situation. For example, Andante lifted Jin's chin and asked, What if I were a deviant who's slowly losing control? Next, he began to move down towards his fair neck. Then I might grope you. Finally, Andante's hand stopped at his soft waist. Like this. Hearing this, Jyn tensed up and started trembling uncontrollably. Then, he continued his relentless psychological assault on the young man. Aren't you afraid this might happen? You don't even have a bonded partner. Andante twisted the knife in his most fatal weakness, leaving Jyn speechless. You should be much more careful. You can't even perform the advanced treatments. He pressed on his waist and asked, "Right?" As soon as he finished, Jyn lowered his head and answered in a tiny voice, "I'll be more careful." Having achieved his goal of teasing him, Andante smiled, then coolly closed the door. "See you tomorrow." Just then, Jyn felt dizzy and collapsed to his knees. He panted heavily, exhausted, because everything was normal. "I really thought I was okay." Fearfully, Jyn clutched at his white shirt. He tried to stand up, but his legs trembled from exhaustion. Gritting his teeth, Jyn took a sharp breath, then let out a long sigh as he thought about the harsh reality. But it turns out nothing's changed at all. Scene changed to the next morning at the guild office. Just as he walked in, a cheerful Andante called out, "You're here early. Good morning, Hayosep." Jyn nodded politely and replied, "Good morning." Just then, Sandy, who was sprawled out on the sofa looking like he'd just survived a life-or-death battle, groaned, "I'm dying." Seeing his exhausted colleague, he walked over and asked, "Are you okay?" With his head hung low, he lamented, "Not okay at all." "Yeah," Jyn said understandingly. "That's true. Finding a lost cat isn't easy. Do you want me to heal you?" Hearing this, Sandy was overjoyed, as if he'd struck gold, and quickly pleaded for help. "Yes, please, help me!" However, Andante coldly crushed his fleeting hope. No. He bluntly rejected the request. "You were just looking for a lost cat. What's there to even heal?" Sandy, feeling wronged, shot back, "How can you be so cruel? Commander, how can you say that to me after you made me work all night?" A moment later, Andante indifferently assigned a new task. "I have a package I haven't picked up at the post office." As soon as he finished, a stunned Sandy pointed to himself. "Me again?" He gave a gentle smile and ordered, "Go and get it for me, will you?" Without hesitating, he stormed out the door in a rage. "Commander, you're really going too far!" Sandy angrily slammed the door. "I swear I'm leaving this place." At this point, Jyn couldn't hold back any longer and turned to his boss, his face full of disapproval. "Why did you do that?" He then reminded him of his actual duty. "You hired me to heal everyone." Andante then offered a paradoxical philosophy. "That's true, but keeping a little bit of stress in the body is a good thing, you know." A second later, he looked at Jyn with a profound gaze. "When a person has too much leisure time, they start to get lazy." Jyn thought helplessly to himself, "But isn't the work here at Unif already ridiculously laid back?" He stared pensively at Andante, seeing that bewildered look on his face. Andante couldn't help but lean in and tease, "What's the matter? Are you that eager to heal someone already?" As soon as he finished, Jyn sighed in a sulky tone, "I just don't get it. Why should he have to suffer when his healer is right here? At this rate, I won't have anything to do." In response, Andante smiled and stated confidently, "Don't worry. Sooner or later you'll be healing us so much you'll get sick of it. You'll see." Hearing this, Jyn naively wondered to himself, "Sick of it?" Just then, Andante cheerfully changed the subject. "Let's have lunch, shall we?" Andante peeked over curiously. "What did you bring today?" As he opened his lunchbox, Jyn proudly announced, "Fried sausages and rice balls." Andante stared blankly at the lunchbox. Seeing this, Jyn pushed the lunchbox towards the man opposite him. "Want some?" Hearing this, Andante replied helplessly, "You ask me that every time, even though my answer is always no." But Jyn immediately called him out. "But you keep staring." He smiled reassuringly. "Don't mind me." Without another word, Jyn started to enjoy his lunch. "Okay then." Jyn chewed on a delicious bite of food, completely focused. Just then, Andante fixed his gaze on Jin's puckered lips and let out a suggestive tease. "Your mouth is so small." At that moment, Jyn froze for a moment, then naively admitted, "Huh? I think so too." The atmosphere suddenly became charged. Andante chuckled and murmured, "You probably won't be able to fit it all in at once." However, Jyn innocently asked, "What do you mean by that?" As soon as he said that, Andante suppressed a sly grin and pointed at the lunchbox. "The sausage." Jyn replied, confused, "Of course I can." He burst into a hearty laugh. "Really? That's impressive?" Then his demeanor changed, and he said seriously, "By the way, there's a guild meeting tomorrow. You should come with me. The government has issued an official order requiring all guilds in Korea to attend." Hearing the shocking news, Jyn asked in surprise, "An official order?" Andante went on to explain the tense situation. "It's likely related to the dungeons. The news hasn't spread yet because they're keeping it quiet from the press. But a few days ago, many gates, both large and small, opened up all at once in Korea. He analyzed the complex situation. Both their number and their size are deeply concerning. They probably want to divide up the gates evenly from the start to keep a few guilds from monopolizing all of them. After letting out a long sigh, Andante's face showed clear disgust. Honestly, I don't want to go at all. The commanders from the other guilds always get on my nerves whenever we have a meeting. Hearing this, Jyn asked doubtfully, do they give you a hard time? He let out a faint smile, recalling those cruel, mocking words. They keep blaming me for not setting foot in a dungeon for the past 2 years. Now he asked curiously, so are you planning on going in this time? Andante asked sincerely, if the guild has decided to do it, will you come with us? Jyn was stunned, frozen for 5 seconds. What? The other man mischievously reminded him, you said you joined our guild because it was safe, because we don't go into dungeons. Jyn answered, flustered. That's true, but... He took a deep breath, then hesitantly admitted, it's true that I used to think that. After composing himself, Jyn declared with determination in his eyes, but there's no way I'm quitting just because the guild has to enter a dungeon. Hearing this, Andante asked joyfully, really? Then he began to rationalize. Even though it's inconvenient, espers still have to clear dungeons to fund and maintain their guilds. Besides, this is the best option if I want to do this work. A guild in the guild union. Facing these tough mysteries, Jyn furrowed his brow, thinking, but the question is, how have they maintained the guild until now if they haven't set foot in a dungeon for 2 years? Then, the other man confidently promised, don't worry, we'll try to avoid dungeons as much as we can. Hearing such a bold answer, he asked innocently, we can do that? Andante explained haughtily, that's right, the worst they can do is make sarcastic comments about us. Don't mind them. At that, he stood up, adjusted his jacket, and got ready to leave. Well then, I'll come pick you up at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I have to head back now, I've got a few things to sort out. After that, Jyn politely bid him farewell. The scene changes to the next morning at his apartment building. Just as Jyn stepped outside, he was startled by the sight before him. In front of him was Andante, dressed elegantly and focused on his phone, completely unaware that Jyn had arrived. Seeing how lavishly dressed the other man was, Jyn looked down at himself in worry. Is this suit too shabby? Just then, Andante noticed him and broke into a bright smile. You're here. Jyn bowed his head slightly and greeted him. Andante graciously opened the car door. Get in. Coda is already there waiting for us. When the car stopped in front of a skyscraper, he announced cheerfully, we're here, let's get out. He slowly eased himself out of the car, only to be met with an overwhelming sight that left Jyn speechless. Before him stood a towering building. Looking at the majestic structure, Jyn marveled to himself. The Republic of Korea's National Security Agency, the top guild in Korea, and the nation's only S-rank guild. This is a truly renowned guild, trusted across the globe, with influence that even reaches the government. Just then, Andante nodded reassuringly. Most of the big meetings are held here. He gently placed an arm on his shoulder. First time at the NSA, right? Just think of it as visiting a supermassive corporation, Jyn replied dazedly. Yeah. As soon as the word left his lips, Andante strode confidently forward. All right, let's head in. Once inside, he cheerfully waved to a teammate waiting for them. Coda, we're here! The man gave a calm, slight nod in greeting. Suddenly, Jyn felt a pang of anxiety and whispered, will Sandy be okay? Andante turned to him, looking puzzled. Why are you suddenly asking that? After a slight hesitation, Jyn explained his concern. It looks like each guild is only allowed 3 attendees, so I probably took his spot. But the other man just smiled brightly to reassure him. Don't worry about it. If you hadn't come, it would have just been me and Coda. As they stepped into the elevator, Andante nonchalantly revealed a shocking truth. Sandy isn't allowed inside. It's because people deemed mentally unstable are banned from entering the NSA. Hearing this, Jyn asked, stunned. What? What do you mean, mentally unstable? At that, he began to recount the legendary story of a major scandal from years past. About 1.5 years ago, I came here with Coda and Sandy. Not many people came over to talk with us during the entire meeting. But then, some guild we'd never seen before came up to us. Andante recalled that legendary moment with his teammate, of his crazy teammate. Sandy started chatting with the guy. He described the incredibly fake act. He was being abnormally nice, then led that guy outside, saying he'd give him a tour of the NSA since he seemed new. After a dramatic pause, Andante continued, describing the explosive climax. But it wasn't long after that. A blood-curdling scream echoed from a distance, throwing the entire hall into utter chaos. Huh? What the hell was that? Is someone fighting over there? That guy barely managed to escape. He let out an exhausted sigh of relief. Witnessing the spectacular scene, Andante and Coda were stunned. And at the meeting that day, emerging from the center of a thick cloud of dust, was the disheveled figure of Sandy. Seeing the ferocious look on his face, he emphasized the terrifying level of destruction. It had turned into a total disaster. Andante then enthusiastically continued his recollection, and that meeting turned into a complete catastrophe. He revealed the dreadful situation at the time. That guy had a bound partner, who also happened to be his boyfriend. And unfortunately for Sandy, that boyfriend was an A-rank Esper. Andante described the fight so vividly, it was like watching a Hollywood blockbuster. The guy went blind with rage and started destroying everything in sight. But the fun part is, Sandy didn't just lie there and take it. Finishing the story, he announced the outcome. He got banned from the NSA after that, too. Andante then explained the strict new rule that was enacted. Right after they cleared away the rubble, the NSA established a new regulation. They should ban all mentally unstable members like him from ever attending their meetings again, he commented nonchalantly as he stepped out of the elevator. But I have to admit, that was the only time this boring meeting ever felt interesting. A second later, Jyn asked worriedly, "Is Tai Soxi okay after what happened?" At that moment, Andante coldly listed off his long list of injuries. It'd be a miracle if he was okay. His entire face was practically torn off, and he has 1 broken arm and 2 broken legs. Hearing this, Jyn shuddered and gasped, "My God." Then he pointed to his head and stated the real problem. But what you should be more concerned about is his brain. That part of him has never been normal. Andante clicked his tongue and explained clearly, "Everyone knows you shouldn't flirt with a Gil, who already has a boyfriend and a binding partner, but he still caused trouble, even though he knew full well." Hearing this, Jyn shuddered slightly as he recalled the strange looks he himself had received. Maybe it's because of the weird look he gets in his eyes sometimes. That's why I thought he wasn't normal. Asterisk. But still, I never thought he was that crazy. Just then, he asked with a hint of reproach, "You two didn't go and help him?" Andante immediately shrugged. "Why would I? He had it coming." Jyn fell silent, deep in thought. A moment later, his conscience getting the better of him, he said, "But isn't being criticized by everyone else enough?" Then Jyn added with a gentle but firm criticism, "Even so, his teammates should have shown at least some concern." After listening, Andante remarked thoughtfully, "You really are a kind person, Hyoseop." Jyn immediately grew flustered and denied the compliment. "No, that's not what I meant." Suddenly, a guest announced excitedly, "There he is!" A man strode confidently onto the stage. Seeing the key figure appear, the entire room fell silent. After he took his place, he bowed to greet everyone. Then the imposing man began to speak. "Thank you all for coming." He introduced himself in a powerful voice. "I will be taking on the role of lead supervisor for the recent gate incident. My name is Shin-Hee Chang, commander of the NSA." He turned on the screen and got straight to the point. "Let's get right to the main issue." Next, Hee Chang pointed to the image of the dungeon and recounted the events. "This is a picture of the dungeon gate that opened 4 days ago. We have encountered gates of this size many times before. However, the problem is that 11 such gates appeared simultaneously." After glancing over the representatives, he explained the main objective: to ensure the fair distribution of the gates. Among the guilds, the government has organized this emergency meeting. Right then, Jyn silently thought, it's just like the commander said yesterday. Amid the fierce competition, Hee Chang continued his announcement. "Because we lack priority rights for S-class dungeons, those gates were taken by the Americans. However, we have secured all the remaining gates in Korea using our domestic priority rights." He commanded decisively, "Now, in order to distribute the gates among all the guilds, I request that the commanders follow me into the meeting room." As soon as he finished speaking, Hee Chang added a veiled threat. "If you fail to participate in this meeting," he looked directly at Andante and warned coldly, "the consequences will be severe." Hearing this, Jyn felt a chill run down his spine when he met that sharp gaze. "I'm pretty sure he was looking this way when he said that." Hee Chang then announced loudly, "This concludes the briefing." At that, Andante turned and sighed in frustration. Guess I have no choice. Espers are truly ruthless. That man really terrifies me. Jyn was speechless, thinking to himself, but you're an Esper too. Just then, Andante seriously instructed Coda, take care of Hyoseop. As for Hyoseop, he handed him a plate of sweets and gently advised, eat this while you wait, and try not to leave Coda's sight. A second later, Andante waved goodbye. See you later. Afterwards, only Jyn and Coda remained, looking helpless. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Jyn held up a pastry and thoughtfully asked, want some? Jyn took a satisfying bite of the sweet pastry, his cheeks puffing out as he chewed happily. Standing amidst the party, Jyn felt a weight lift off him. What a relief. I know nothing will happen to me. Because I'm so insignificant, no one will even pay attention to me. Looking around, he couldn't help but marvel at the luxurious and magnificent NSA headquarters. Still, the facilities here are really nice. Suddenly, a grating voice rang out from behind, full of contempt and ridicule. Look at that failure gawking all over the place. He's probably never been to a place like this before. Hearing this, Jyn whipped his head around, startled. The man continued to sneer. They're from the Onape Guild, aren't they? The apparent leader confirmed with a haughty expression. I guess so. I saw them with the Onape commander earlier, and the guy next to him. I saw him when that psycho went nuts. After a smirk, another one brought up the past scandal. Oh, you're talking about the guy who got banned from the NSA after an A-class beat the shit out of him? Fucking hilarious. At that, the entire group joined in, laughing mockingly. All the members of ONAIP are freaks, I'm serious. Another one chimed in contemptuously. They're useless but always causing trouble, can't do a damn thing to help. Then he glanced at the boy's pretty face and made a lewd comment. I bet if they used those handsome looks of theirs, they'd make a lot more money. Hearing these insults, Jyn was stunned, unable to believe his ears. Coda, however, remained calm with a completely emotionless face. Just then they started gossiping about their combat abilities. They probably won't be joining any dungeon raids, right? They burst out laughing, then said with certainty they probably couldn't even if they wanted to. Looking that weak. Seeing this, the boy's mood sank, and he looked down at the ground thoughtfully. Then, Jyn froze, thinking to himself, the best ranked among the worst C-class guilds? Only now do I truly feel the humiliation in those words. Emboldened, they pushed further, bringing up private matters to mock them. Come to think of it, I heard they're all orphans. Is that true? They were probably thrown out for being so useless. At that moment, he couldn't take it anymore and cut in to reprimand them. You're all being too rude. Seeing Jyn staring daggers at him, the man laughed mockingly. Hear what he said? At that moment, he moved closer and spat out the harshest words. But it's the truth. ONAIP is just a bunch of useless bums. And your parents didn't want to raise you either. I'm just telling the truth, kid. The boy stood his ground and demanded, you should learn to respect those around you. Hearing this, the bald man grew furious and yelled, What? A C-class dares to give me orders? Without hesitation, Jyn stuck to his principles. No, I'm just asking you to behave politely. Having lost his patience, the man reached out to grab him. You lowly piece of trash! Just then, Coda quickly stepped forward to protect him. As he finished speaking, the man roared angrily, What is it, you C-class scumbag? He calmly tightened his grip on the man's hand, feeling his own arm freeze in midair. The bald man was terrified. What the hell, my hand? I can't move it! He struggled in pain. What the hell is this? Let go! The arrogant bald man growled, ordering, I said let go, you son of a bitch! He looked at Coda with murky eyes and hurled an insult. You bastard! The furious bald man tried to pull away. Damn it! Just then, Coda nonchalantly let go of his hand, causing the startled bald man to lose his balance and stumble backward. Now enraged, the bald man radiated a menacing aura. You bastard, you're dead! Facing a critical situation, Jyn hurriedly tried to stop Coda. He gently reassured him, It's okay. The bald man sneered, starting to wildly speculate. Trying to act all calm in front of your boyfriend, huh? As soon as he said that, Andante suddenly appeared behind him and inquired, Who is his boyfriend? Startled, he instinctively threw a powerful punch right at his face. Who the hell is this asshole? Andante dazedly turned his head to the side. A second later, he rubbed his chin and let out a sound. The bald man was now horrified as he recognized the familiar face. You're the commander of ONAIP. Andante feigned pain, but the smile on his lips was full of sarcasm. I think you just broke my cheekbone. The man didn't believe him and shot back, "Bullshit! You look perfectly fine." Andante shrugged and put on a professional act of being the victim. Really? But a C-class Esper was just punched in the face by a B-class Esper. A moment later, Andante directly mentioned his title. "You're a member of the B-class guild, Chess, aren't you?" He smirked, then turned his head to look towards that guild's commander. "I hear your commander really hates this kind of troublesome business. He values moral principles quite a lot, you know." Looking at the resentful face, Andante emphasized, "Oh no. He doesn't look very happy." Then he made a merciful offer. "What are you going to do? I'll let this slide. If you tuck your tail between your legs and get the hell out of my sight. But if you don't..." Hearing this, the bald man quickly covered his face and ran off. "Damn it, you guys just wait!" At that, Jyn ran over worriedly to check the injury. "Are you okay, Commander?" A moment later, Andante gave a relaxed, reassuring smile. "I'm fine. It was like a mosquito bite." The boy thought sadly to himself, "But you were punched by a B-class Esper." But faced with this strange display of mercy, Jyn wondered, is it really okay to let him go that easily? He scoffed and asserted, "Don't worry, he's so stupid he doesn't even know his own commander's temperament. I'm sure he won't dare show his face around here again." Seeing this tumultuous life, the boy wondered, does this kind of thing happen often? Andante admitted honestly, quite often, actually. "Since we're the lowest-ranked C-class guild, we get a lot of flack." After slicking back his charming hair, he made a smug comment. "I think guys like that are just jealous of us. It's because we're all so handsome." A moment later, Andante turned and announced, "Anyway, you don't need to worry about it. The meeting's over. Let's go home." Seeing Coda standing there looking lost, he asked with concern, "Coda, why are you just standing there?" Andante asked perceptively, "Are you curious about the results of the meeting?" He reported with a smile, "I was planning to tell everyone when we got back, but I'll let you in on it early since you did such a good job protecting Hyoseop." As he finished, Andante dropped a bombshell. "We've been assigned an A-rank dungeon." Hearing this, he asked in disbelief, "What?" Just then, Jyn anxiously interjected, "Is that even allowed?" "But our guild is only C-rank." He calmly reassured him, "Don't worry. Our mission is just to take care of the weaker monsters at the entrance." Jyn, stunned, thought to himself, "But this mission is still dangerous." Why is he so calm? Does this kind of thing happen all the time? After a shrug, Andante stated clearly, "Even if we participate in this dungeon raid, nothing will really change." A moment later, he gave his instructions. "You just need to provide basic healing, just like we agreed. That's it. And I guarantee you won't be in any danger." Hearing this, Jyn nervously wrung his hands, thinking to himself, "It's not the healing I'm worried about. I can do that easily, with just a simple touch, even for people in critical condition. As an S-rank guide, it's the only thing I'm truly confident in." Scene changed to the Onape Guild headquarters. The moment Sandy saw them, he jumped out and whined, "Why are you all back so late? Did you guys eat dinner without me?" Andante admitted nonchalantly, "Of course we did." "I knew it!" he cried out, dejected. Jyn skillfully placated him. "Here, I bought you some dessert." The moment Sandy saw the cake, his eyes lit up with a gasp. After taking the gift, he was so moved he threw his arms around him. "No one in this guild has ever treated me!" And so kindly before. At that moment, Jyn suddenly saw Sandy like a big, whiny puppy and gently patted his head. He looked up, delighted, with a beaming smile. As Jyn looked into his golden eyes, a flicker of doubt sparked within him. "I feel like I've seen that eye color somewhere before." Just then, the wall in front of them violently exploded. Other members cheerfully called out to everyone. "We're back," Andante calmly asked. "Did you have fun?" The long-haired guy gushed excitedly, "Of course we did!" "Everyone kept swarming us to get to know us." Hearing this, he chuckled and remarked offhandedly, "I'm so jealous." The C-rank Esper, Flat, sat down and said, "You should have come with us. It definitely would have been a lot more fun with you there." After clearing his throat, Andante announced seriously, "Sorry to bring this up the moment you get back." He then announced cheerfully, "But in 4 days, we're raiding a dungeon." Flat nodded readily. "For real? We've been taking it easy for way too long. Might as well go once to stop everyone from bugging us." Just then, he asked, shocked, "Wait, it's an A-rank dungeon? How did you even get a mission like that for our guild? It's usually really hard for a C-rank guild to land a job like this." Andante reminded him, "They've only asked us to clear the weak mobs at the entrance." Flat asked skeptically, "You're sure they're not messing with us, right?" After looking over the list, Flat asked directly, "So who's going?" A moment later, he pointed and confirmed, "You and me." Just then, he was stunned, unable to believe the reckless decision. "Are you nuts, Commander? You should take someone who has better synergy with you than I do." Andante tilted his head with a mischievous smile. "But I think we coordinate perfectly well together." A moment later, Flat scoffed, "That's ridiculous. Our abilities have zero synergy." As soon as he finished speaking, he settled the matter. "I've already put your name on the list. There's no backing out now." He groaned in annoyance. "God, this is such a hassle." After that, Andante gave his instructions. "Get ready. In 4 days, the dungeon gate opens at 7 in the evening." After hearing that, Flat sighed and complained, "Not only is it a hassle, but it opens late, too." Just then, he remembered something and made a demand. "Well, in that case, I need healing first." A moment later, Flat looked over expectantly and ordered, "Hey, guide, heal me up so I can go conquer that dungeon." He nodded in agreement and gestured. "Go ahead, Hayoseop. Just heal him until you feel he's ready. Actually, if you could, please heal all 4 of the guys who just returned today." Hearing this, Seokni yelled out resentfully, "How come those scumbags get healed and I don't?" Without hesitating, Jin quickly agreed, "Okay, no problem." Last time Seokni asked, he wasn't allowed to. Andante sternly scolded him, "They're different from you." Seizing the chance, Flat added a taunt, "Hey, whenever you get the chance, you're always trying to abuse your powers?" He questioned me angrily, "But don't I deserve a break too?" Flat let out a sigh and offered a hollow promise. "Such a shame. You'll get your treatment soon enough." A moment later, he urged me to start the energy purification process. "Go on, treat me." As soon as he finished speaking, Jin gently touched Flat's hand and began channeling his energy. He closed his eyes, concentrating on the spreading power. Jin focused, converting the energy from within his body. When suddenly he was startled, realizing something was wrong. Jin froze, his eyes widening as he felt his energy being drained as if into a bottomless pit. He wondered in disbelief, "All the energy I'm transferring to him, it's being absorbed at a terrifying speed. I never expected he'd need this much energy. Is he really just a C-class Esper who got back from vacation?" Probing deeper, Jin was shocked to discover horrifying devastation. There's an incredible amount of poison in his body. How has he managed to endure this until now? Feeling the refreshing flow of energy, Flat praised him with delight. "Ah, this is so much more comfortable. An S-class is really on another level. Just a light touch and I already feel so much better. Shocking." Just then he asked worriedly, "I'm sorry if I did something to make you uncomfortable." Flat smiled and denied it. "I never said anything like that. You're really amazing." Jin sighed in relief. "I'm glad to hear that." Noticing something was off, he looked at his own palm and wondered, "Do C-class Espers always require this much treatment?" Just then, Andante noticed the tired look on his face. He immediately asked with a concerned gaze, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Jin explained honestly, "No, I'm fine. It's just Flat's condition seems to be quite severe." Andante laughed and started gossiping. "I heard he broke his leg while bungee jumping during his vacation. It healed fast on the outside, but I bet the inside is still a total mess, right?" Flat added nonchalantly. "I guess so." At that moment, Jin thoughtfully reassured himself, "Maybe I've just forgotten what this feels like. It's only because it's been so long since I've used my healing ability." A moment later, Andante spoke up. "Could you treat the remaining members too?" After taking a deep breath, Jin was determined to get it done. "No problem." After that, he touched the next person's hand and channeled his energy to them. Jin focused on transferring his power. Witnessing the miraculous healing, the man exclaimed in awe, "This is incredible!" The scene changes to a small apartment. Jin lies sprawled on his bed, his body completely drained. "I'm totally exhausted." He blushed, breathing heavily. Jin was bewildered, comparing this to his legendary accomplishments from the past. "Back then, I didn't even break a sweat saving a dying S-class Esper. But now, I feel completely drained after just treating 4 C-class members." He trembled, letting out a soft, hot moan. An embarrassed Jin gripped the bedsheets tightly. Then he began to recall his specialized knowledge. Normally, for an Esper to be able to use their powers, they need a compatible guide. After some thought, Jin realized the dangerous risks. Although guides have a daily limit on their power usage, they don't experience symptoms like Espers do. However, for an S-class guide, it's a completely different story. Most people don't know about this. because S-class guides are extremely rare. But once they surpass their normal limit... Suddenly, he bit down on his lip and let out a few suggestive sounds. Jyn shivered, his legs curling as he rubbed them against the sheets. He let out a distressed, hot breath. Then, Jyn turned over in pain, arching his back. Dazed and sweating profusely, Jyn convulsed as he released a fluid. After calming down, he buried his face in his pillow, ashamed. Noticing a sweet scent, Jyn sighed in frustration. The side effects are already terrible enough. And now I'm even emitting a sweet scent. He curled up, hugging himself miserably. This is just the worst. Meanwhile, in the association's office, a bewildered Andante asked, "Flat, why are you back? Weren't you supposed to go straight home?" Flat asked dazedly, "Did you see Cindy on your way here? She just suddenly vanished." A moment later, he smiled and changed the subject to that new guide. "I honestly didn't think he'd be that skilled." Flat admitted with a hidden meaning, "I thought that even if he was an S-class, there had to be something unusual about him. But he's far more skilled than I ever imagined." Andante replied, pleased and proud, "Is that so? I'm glad our guild was able to recruit such a talent." Then he suddenly lowered his voice and asked, "But don't you think it's weird? Why would an S-class guide join a C-class guild?" Andante nonchalantly asked back, "What do you mean?" A serious Flat analyzed, "It's strange that he would choose a C-class guild. Just because he supposedly wants to stick to basic treatments?" He warned gravely, "What if he's actually the spy Cindy was talking about?" After a moment of silence, Andante confirmed concisely, "I'll take note of that." Meanwhile, he wondered to himself, "To be honest, I've been suspicious of his motives ever since the day he applied, because none of it makes any logical sense. I even went to his house myself and tried to uncover his real motive by being friendly to him, but I couldn't find any evidence that he was a spy." A spy. Then Andante reasoned intelligently, if he were actually a spy, wouldn't he be trying to act as normal as possible? Flat agreed. That's true. A moment later, he offered a counter-theory. But what if he's hiding how suspicious he is by pretending to be suspicious? He laughed mockingly. "You're just deluding yourself with all those theories." Andante stated firmly, "Don't worry about it too much. As far as I can see, Hyoseop is not a spy." Flash asked cautiously, "You don't think he's hiding something, do you?" He shrugged evasively. "I never said that." At that, Flash shot back, annoyed. "But you just told me not to worry." Andante calmly enunciated each word. "I was talking about him being a spy." As he finished, a confidential file was tossed onto the table. Flash picked up the document, bewildered. "What's this?" He revealed frankly, "See for yourself. He has no recorded activity in Korea, nor has he ever undergone any kind of screening." Just then, Coda spoke up triumphantly. "I knew it!" Andante narrowed his eyes, asking, "What do you know?" "I just feel like something's not right," he explained, sensing a looming danger. Flash urged impatiently, "What's not right?" However, Coda just closed his eyes and didn't say another word. That made him lose all his patience. "Just say it!" Flash complained in frustration. "It's stupid trying to talk to that guy." "What's he talking about, Commander?" At that, Andante recounted what happened. "We took him to the recent guild meeting, but no one recognized him." He deduced shrewdly, if he were an S rank, at least one person should have recognized him. And yet not a single person in the NSA knows who he is. Hearing this, he asked in astonishment, "Not even those S-rank lunatics know him?" Flash began to piece the information together deep in thought. The NSA only recruits the absolute elite among S-ranks, so they should have information on every single one of them, including their faces, preferences, and names. But they don't know Hyoseop. Just then, a bubbly Sandy offered a theory. Could he be a foreigner? But he looks completely Korean. Andante nodded, adding his own idea. Or he could be Korean but raised abroad, like you and me. Citing the extremely strict border control, he pursed his lips and shot it down. Even so, that still doesn't make any sense. The NSA would definitely know if an S-rank entered Korea from overseas. He frowned. Maybe he immigrated illegally. As the mystery deepened, Flash carefully concluded, "There's definitely something very shady about him." A moment later, Andante spoke up, sounding rather pleased. "But what's the problem? He seems pretty harmless to us." Sandy agreed enthusiastically. "Exactly. Hyoseop is incredibly adorable." Hearing this, A speechless Flash retorted sarcastically. Is adorable your top priority here? You two are insane. As he finished, he coldly added, Why should we care about his past or his secrets? I doubt his past is as dark as yours. Andante delivered the fatal blow that silenced them all. You're all criminals, after all. At that, he warned unhappily. I get your point, but can you not call us that? Andante laughed teasingly. Want a fancier title? How about half-assed criminals? Flash yelled indignantly. Hey! After having his laugh, he warned sternly, Whatever. But don't regret it when he stabs you in the back later. Seeing this, Sandy teased, Are you sulking? A second later, he continued smugly, Why would I regret it? He's the perfect piece for us right now. Andante cunningly listed his advantages. Think about it. He works hard, he's easily persuaded, gullible, and not too sharp. At this, the group fell silent, with no one offering a rebuttal. He then went straight for the heart of the matter. I mean, he didn't even realize we're S-ranks after treating us. What more could we ask for? Next, Fred narrowed his eyes, looking at him meaningfully. You seem to like him a lot, huh? Andante admitted shamelessly. That's right. That's why I'm praising him. Hearing that, he said with contempt, Liar. Then, he sighed and reminded everyone in a serious tone, Stop being suspicious and just be nice to him. We don't want to scare him off. As he said that, Sandy cheered enthusiastically. I'm 100% on board. At that point, Andante turned to warn him. You're the one I'm most worried about. Hearing this, he blinked blankly up at his superior with an innocent face. Why? Andante then explained gravely, Because you might try to violate his one and only condition. Seeing his confusion, he scratched his head. I'm worried I might do that myself. Andante stressed seriously. Protect him. I think he's dealing with some kind of trauma. Some kind of psychological trauma. So it's a rule if he leaves because of you. At that moment, his eyes flashed with a look as sharp as a knife. I will kill you. Later, Andante softly instructed, Make sure our only guy is well taken care of. It's not every day you find a guy who can heal wounds with just a touch. After the discussion was over, he was lost in deep thought. The scene shifts to early morning at the association's office, 4 days after the gate opened. At this time, Andante was adjusting his gear and said his goodbyes. We're heading out now. A worried Jyn stepped forward to ask, Are you sure you don't need me to wait in front of the gate? Just then, Andante smiled, patting his head reassuringly. I already told you it'll be fine. You look like a sad little puppy. After his instructions, he smiled brightly and waved, Just wait here and don't worry, okay? Jyn stood there silently, thinking about the unwritten rules of this harsh world. Normally, Guy don't enter dungeons, but they wait at the gate in case of an emergency. He anxiously clenched his fists, but the commander told him he didn't need to come. Just then, Sandy, who was beside him, spoke up comfortingly. There's nothing to worry about, Hyung. He cheerfully changed the subject. Do you know what a debuff is? It's an ability that weakens a target. Sandy began to brag about his boss's insane power. In the commander's case, he can create a fake sky anywhere, and create any weather condition he wants. Espers can usually only replicate a single type of weather, but he can replicate almost all of them. Faced with such an absurd ability, Jyn wondered, but things like the sky and the ground don't exist in dungeons, so his power still works in there? He explained excitedly, That's what makes it even better. Plus, each type of weather carries a different debuff. A moment later, Jyn couldn't help but wonder, how can someone that talented be just a C-class? Sandy shrugged and explained, Because he's just a debuffer. He added with a bitter tone, The fact that he can't fight alone is why he can't get past C-class. Hearing that, Jyn marveled and reasoned, With that kind of power, he should be able to coordinate well with anyone, right? Then why did Flash say the opposite? Is he a close combat type, Esper? Hearing this, Sandy nodded and began to break down the mind-boggling tactics. Exactly. Flash is very agile, so he likes to fight one-on-one at close range. Because the commander's ability is to create a sky above the enemy, so only long-range Espers can fight outside the debuff's area of effect, you see? Then he gave a wry smile and lamented, Right. And on top of that, the members of our guild are all pretty individualistic, so it's hard for them to coordinate and fight as a team. Hearing that, Jyn pondered and asked, So why did he choose Flash? Sandy chuckled and guessed, I'm not really sure, but I'm guessing the commander simply wants to piss him off. Who can even understand what goes on in that guy's head? He cheerfully moved on. Anyway, worrying about them is just a waste of time. Jyn nodded to himself. That's right, I'm sure they'll be fine. Afterward, he mumbled the prayer. I hope they don't go too deep into the dungeon. Time passed, the sun set, and dusk arrived. Meanwhile, Jyn was leaning tiredly against the sofa. Holding a thick book, he thought, I don't know when they'll be back, so maybe it's best to stay the night at the office. I guess I'll read a book to kill time. The atmosphere was dead silent, with only the sound of the clock ticking. He drowsily thought to himself, they're so late. Then Jyn quickly drifted off to sleep. By now it was late at night when he suddenly jolted awake. Jyn looked around in confusion. How long was I asleep? Just as he stood up to get some rest, the door to the room suddenly opened. Time to turn off the lights. Seeing a tall figure appear, Jyn softly uttered, Commander. Andante then walked in. In the dim light, he asked in surprise, You didn't go home, Hirosuf? Hearing this, Jyn hurriedly explained, I was waiting for you all to come back. Andante replied apologetically and gently, I should have told you to go home first. I'm sorry about that. Jyn shook his head with a small smile, marveling silently at his hazy appearance. It's fine, I was just sleeping. I can't see his face, but I'm glad he seems okay. As soon as he finished his thought, he looked around curiously. Where's Flash? Just then, Andante pointed down to the ground. He's flattened on the floor. Hearing this, Jyn exclaimed in shock, What? Andante turned his head and gestured, Hold on a sec. He then flipped the light switch. As the lights came on, a horrifying sight greeted Jin's eyes. Seeing Andante's blood-soaked body, Jyn was stunned. Commander? However, Andante calmly asked, What's wrong? Jyn rushed over urgently. I'll treat you right away. Andante gently soothed him. There's no need. Then he pointed to the floor and suggested, It's a good thing you're still here. It's better if you treat him. Seeing the unconscious person, Jin's expression darkened. He cried out in alarm, Flash! Jyn hurriedly knelt beside him and asked, What happened? Is he going to be okay? Looking at his own tattered appearance, Andante apologized guiltily. Actually, I wanted you to see us in the morning after we were cleaned up and presentable. Sorry for scaring you. Jyn sharply brushed off the apology. That doesn't matter. A moment later, Andante looked at Flash with a nonchalant expression and said, He's not going to die just from being treated a day late. At that moment, Jyn placed his hand on Flash's chest, his voice filled with anxiety. Are you okay, Flash? I'll treat you right now. Just then, Andante suddenly spoke up to stop him. Wait, Hirosuf! Without waiting for him to finish, Jyn directly grabbed Flash's hand, and a current of energy was quickly transferred. From his unconscious state, Flash's eyes suddenly shot open. Losing control, he lunged forward and threw his arms around Jyn. Next, Flash aggressively bit Jin's shirt. It was instantly torn, sending buttons flying. He descended into chaos and opened his mouth wide. Without hesitation, Flash bit down on Jin's pale neck. Jyn was in shock, unable to process what was happening. Feeling a surge of danger, Jyn stammered, Wait. However, Flash was still in a frenzy, his gaze looking like he wanted to devour him. Seeing those brilliant golden eyes, as you grit your teeth and shut your eyes, you think he's going to eat you alive. Just then, a sudden noise makes Jyn slowly open his eyes in fear. In front of him, Andante is using a knife to subdue him. Seeing that Flat had calmed down, he asked sternly, Have you snapped out of it? Flat nodded slightly, then pulled the knife out of his shoulder. This is insane. Right, thanks. At that moment, he complained unhappily. Was it really necessary to stab someone who was on the verge of death? That was really going too far. Andante smirked coldly. Well, you looked like you were losing control. A second later, Flat sighed. Proving I'm always fine. You know that. I had no intention of forcing him. You were acting suspiciously. Who knows what you might have done? Then Andante caringly helped Jyn up. Are you okay, Hirosuf? He bent down and offered, If you're scared, just hold on to my shirt. Jyn tried to stay calm and refused the help. No, it's okay, I'm fine. As soon as he finished, Flat approached again with an apologetic look. Well then, shall we continue what we were doing? Nothing's going to happen. He then reached out his hand, but his heart was pounding with fear. Honestly, I'm still scared, but... Jyn took his hand and began transferring his energy. He could feel a cold aura radiating from that powerful body. It feels colder than before. The energy I'm giving him isn't enough. Just then, Flat suddenly sighed and rested his face on Jyn's shoulder. He asked hesitantly, How far can we go? Jyn was bewildered, not understanding. What? Flat stated plainly. I mean, for the treatment. What is the limit of physical contact for you? Then he whispered in a husky, seductive voice, Tell me the highest level you can go. Hearing this, he became flustered and thought to himself, My limit is a kiss, but I don't think this is the time to bring that up. Jyn remained silent, still lost in his own emotions. Just then, Flat suddenly pulled him into a hug. He impatiently slipped a cold hand inside Jyn's shirt. Tell me, quickly, I'm running out of patience. Seeing his prey breathing heavily, Flat noted with amusement, So, I can do whatever I want as long as I don't cross the line, right? But Jyn tensed up and quietly refused. No. At this, Flat moved closer and inhaled the scent of his pale skin. Noticing his breathing getting heavier, Flat smirked. What's this? He chuckled and caressed his waist. Are you sure you don't want this? Your body is betraying you. Then Flat ran his hand all over his body and teased, Look, you seem to be used to this sort of thing. Just then, Andante's powerful voice cut through the suggestive atmosphere. Flat. He unconsciously turned his head to look at his silent commander, seeing the displeasure in his eyes. Flat clicked his tongue in annoyance and pulled away. Jyn's face was flushed, and he looked exhausted. Flat shrugged with a half-hearted apology. Sorry, I didn't mean to go that far. As Flat stepped back, Andante gently approached. Only then was Jyn startled back to his senses. He looked at him blankly, while Flat walked over to the sofa. A moment later he stammered, A kiss is my limit. Jyn continued gravely, You asked me how much I could handle. Perceptively, he held out his hand. Just holding hands is enough. Your face has gone pale. Hearing that, Jyn looked a little sad. Flat said nothing and turned his face away. After that, Jyn began the treatment process. Just then, Andante looked at his watch and ordered them to stop. That's enough, it's already 3 a.m., he asked, sounding drained. Can I go home and get some sleep? Jyn replied indifferently, Go ahead. At that moment, Flat excitedly waved goodbye. Great, I'm leaving then. Thanks for today. Jyn was still dazed. It was nothing. He stared at the door for a long time. Jyn worried about the result. He's not completely healed. A moment later, he sighed and thought, but he was so confident, saying that just holding hands was enough, because I'm an S-class. Just then, Andante stood up and offered, I'll take you home. Hayos up, get your things. Jyn nodded and replied, Thank you. Just then, he looked at his torn shirt with mixed feelings of despair and relief. I'm so glad. I had no idea how I'd get home with my shirt ripped like this. I managed to avoid a situation where I'd be dragged to a police station. Jyn unconsciously turned and saw Andante changing his clothes. He was stunned by the sight before him, a mess of overlapping scars on his chest. Seeing the serious wounds, Jyn's heart skipped a beat. He wondered, but espers are supposed to heal faster than normal people. So why does he have such a huge scar on his chest? Just then, Jyn thought about their miraculous recovery ability. Even the most severe external wounds should be able to heal completely. If he needs immediate treatment, why won't he let me help him? Without hesitation, he gathered his courage and made the request. Commander, I will treat you. A moment later, Andante was still as calm as ever. Then he firmly rejected his kind offer. I'm fine. Let's get you home. You must be exhausted from treating Flash. Hearing this, Jyn insisted, At least let me treat you a little bit. He sternly dismissed the idea. If you have any energy left, save it. You'll need it to treat the other members tomorrow. Jyn still wasn't convinced, but Commander... Andante opened the door and urged him, Hurry up, let's go. He paused, a look of confusion on his face. Now, Andante's car was driving slowly down the road. Inside, the atmosphere grew suffocating from the silence. Sensing the overwhelming unease, Jyn sat timidly and quietly. For some reason, he seemed so much colder now. He agonized over the thought, why won't he let me treat him? Should I try to treat him just a little before I go home? Then a frightening thought flashed through Jin's mind, making him shudder. But what if he loses control? The scene changes to the front of Jin's apartment. Andante spoke in a cold voice. We're here. Go inside and get some rest. A moment later, he added thoughtfully, You can take tomorrow off if you're too tired. Flat won't be coming in anyway. Before getting out of the car, Jyn made up his mind once more. Commander. Andante tilted his head in confusion. He finished, looking him straight in the eye with determination. I think you should let me treat you. Suddenly, Andante grabbed Jin's hand, his voice a mix of surprise and annoyance. "What do you think you're doing?" Hearing that, Jyn retorted in frustration. "Why? Why do you keep refusing?" Andante repeated his refusal, his expression void of emotion. "I've already told you many times. I don't need it," Jyn fearfully reminded him. "But you're injured." Just then his voice dropped to a low, heavy tone. "Hayo seop." Andante enunciated every syllable, as if trying to etch the words into the other's mind. "Don't cross the line." He then added a careful warning. "You don't have to do things I haven't asked you to." Hearing this, Jyn hesitated and bowed his head. "I'm sorry." Andante's usual gentle demeanor returned as he affectionately ruffled his hair. "What's there to be sorry about?" "Thank you for waiting for me at the office today." Jyn got out of the car and bowed. "Get home safe." A second later, he was watching the car disappear into the distance. With a heavy heart, Jyn looked down at his hand. He stared blankly at the bright red mark on his arm, dazedly recalling the sensation from that moment. "The moment I touched his hand to treat him, I failed." He shuddered, recalling the look of utter disgust on his face. But I could feel an immense power flowing through him. He thought in terror. Not to mention his eyes. They were exactly like those of an esper on the verge of losing control. I'm certain there's some kind of toxin in his body, an abnormally large amount. It couldn't have built up in just one day. He then clutched his head, trying to force the negative thoughts away. No, I must be wrong. Jyn then recalled his normal interactions with everyone else. He seemed perfectly normal all day when he was talking to the other guild members. He told himself, so there's no way that's possible. Scene changed to 5 days later, at the bustling ONIP Guild headquarters. Andante slammed his hand on the table and made a surprising decision. "We're going on a trip." Flat's eyes widened in shock. "Right now? Where have you been for the past 5 days?" Andante smiled and gave a perfectly reasonable excuse. "I thought we should organize a trip to celebrate. To celebrate Hayo-Saop." Hearing this, Sandy jumped up excitedly. "Great idea! Let's go, Hyung." He nodded blankly. "Okay, if everyone else is going, I'll go too." As soon as he said that, Andante immediately sealed the deal. "Looks like no one objects, huh? All the members are here, so let's head out right now." A second later, Jyn turned in a panic and asked, "What? But I haven't packed anything." Andante cheerfully reported, "Everything you need has already been prepared. You just need to get up and go." Next, he gently took his arm. And so, our surprise trip began. The scene changes to a villa full of sun and wind. Everyone exclaimed in amazement. "I can't believe it took less than a minute to get to Gyeongnam. The portal is really amazing." Just then, Andante slowly opened the door to the apartment. Before them was a luxurious view. Seeing the sight, Jyn let out a soft sound of admiration. Looking at the deep blue sea, Sandy and Flash complained, bored. "Why the sea again? Oh man, I'm so sick of the sea." Seeing their reaction, he asked curiously, "You guys don't like going to the beach?" Just then, Coda nodded and explained, "That's right, because our old office was right by the sea." Sandy turned to him expectantly and asked, "Do you like the sea?" Hyungjin smiled and confirmed, "Of course I do. I used to live near the mountains." A second later, he groaned and started listing off an endless list. "Come on. What's so great about the sea, anyway? The air is all humid and salty. Electronics break easily, not to mention it's so noisy." And a moment later, Sandy grimaced, looking into the distance. "And there's a swarm of annoying bugs that just won't go away." Hearing this, he wondered in confusion. A swarm of annoying bugs? Does he mean jellyfish or something? Then, his voice suddenly turned sweet as he leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Ah, forget about that. There's a spa downstairs. Do you want to go with me?" Sandy put on a puppy dog face and made an enticing offer. "There probably won't be anyone there. It's only for VIP guests. Soaking in hot water feels amazing." Jyn evasively refused. "Sorry, I'm not going." He sulked and complained, "Why not? Are you uncomfortable going with me? Or are you just shy?" He stammered in denial. No, that's not it." Just then, Flash chimed in sarcastically. "Hey, if I were Guy, I wouldn't go with you either." He clicked his tongue and sneered. "Following you is just asking for trouble. Who knows what you'd try to do to me?" Sandy furiously flipped him the bird. "Get lost! I wasn't asking for your opinion!" Just then, Fred and Sandy, boiling with rage, were about to lunge at him to settle the score. "You're the one starting trouble, you bastard!" Jyn watched this fiery war of words, feeling completely helpless. Are they even friends? This is so hard to understand. Then Coda suddenly walked over, took his hand, and reminded him with a concerned look, "Be careful not to scratch your nails." He gently caressed Jin's hand. Coda then massaged it, taking the opportunity to care for him. Seeing this strange change in his attitude, Flash commented in amazement, "I've never seen Coda like someone that much." Hearing that, Sandy took the chance to tease, "He didn't even bother talking to you for the first whole year." He retorted angrily, "That's because my personality and his are too different, so it was hard for us to get along." But Sandy landed a final blow. "That's not it. Your personality doesn't get along with anyone." The moment he finished, Flash roared in fury, "What did you just say, you damn bastard?" A second later, Andante spoke up, warning, "You two, quiet down. I heard the outdoor pool here is beautiful." He suggested enthusiastically, "Let's forget about the spa. Let's go swimming, okay?" Scene changed to the swimming pool. Flash looked around excitedly. "It's been so long since I've gone swimming." Just then, Jyn looked at the crowded pool and felt a bit intimidated. "Everyone is looking at us." Seeing the brilliant sunlight, Andante beamed. "The weather is gorgeous today." Standing among them, he silently admitted, "Well, it makes sense. These guys are just too striking." Just then, Fred expertly dived into the pool. Flash turned and pleaded, "Hyung, won't you come swimming with us?" Jyn shyly refused. "No, I can't swim." A second later, he eagerly offered, "Then let me teach you. Come with me." Looking at Flash's muscular body and the sparkling surface of the pool, his mood suddenly became complicated. "I don't mind getting in the water, but—" Then Jyn shook his head and refused. "No need. You go ahead and swim first." Just then, Andante stepped in to defuse the situation. "That's right, you go on, Sandy. We'll sit and watch over there." He asked with a suspicious, sarcastic tone, "Are you some kind of voyeur? Why would you come to the pool just to watch other people?" Andante laughed teasingly. "Busted." Just then, he put his arm around him and led him away with an excuse. "Besides, we can't let our guy get sunburned swimming under this scorching sun." As he finished speaking, Andante pointed towards the lounge chairs under the cool shade of an umbrella. "Let's go sit over there, Hyosip." Sandy sulked for a few seconds, then ran a hand through his hair and turned towards the pool. Next, he aimed straight ahead and jumped in. Sandy stomped flat on Fred's back while he was swimming. After that, they both got angry and started punching each other. "You're so annoying. I'm gonna have to punch you a few times. You crazy bastard." At the same time, Andante cheerfully suggested, "Let's sit down and watch the show. You'll get a sunburn if you just stand there." Just then, a concerned Jyn asked him if he was all right. "Your skin seems very sensitive." Andante smiled, reassuring him, "I'm fine. I'm confident the sun doesn't affect my skin at all." Hearing that, Jyn suddenly stared at the commander's chest as old suspicions resurfaced in his mind. Could it be he's not getting in the water because of that wound I saw before? Just then, Andante caught his gaze and raised a suggestive, teasing eyebrow. "Why are you staring at me like that?" The moment he spoke, his sly accusation made Jyn freeze up. "Your eyes are glued to my chest. Are you trying to sneak a peek at my pecs under this shirt?" A second later, Jin's face flushed bright red as he stammered out a defense. No, I was just—" Andante let out a chuckle and softened his tone. "Hey, I'm just messing with you. Your reaction is just so funny. It makes me want to keep teasing you." But Jyn, so embarrassed he wanted the ground to swallow him whole, still tried to explain, "I really wasn't— and staring at your chest, I swear." At that, he laughed and replied, "I know." Then Andante tilted his head, adding suggestively, "And even if you were looking, it wouldn't matter. I can show you any time you want." After that bit of flirting, he changed the subject. "So, are you avoiding the water because you don't know how to swim, or do you simply not like it?" Jyn hesitated before admitting, "Both, actually." Andante narrowed his eyes as if seeing right through him. "I think there's another reason." Hearing this, Jyn flinched in alarm. He stared blankly and asked, "What do you mean by that?" A moment later, he analyzed sharply, "You refused to go to the spa earlier, too. It seems you're uncomfortable showing your body." Andante's gaze suddenly turned deep and searching. "That makes me curious. Are you hiding a scar or something?" The words were barely out of his mouth when Jyn rushed to deny it. I don't have any scars." Andante paused thoughtfully for a moment. "In that case—" And then he lifted Jin's shirt. "Is it because of this bruise?" Jyn brought a hand to his shoulder, narrowing his eyes and muttering to himself, "So that was why. He looks so cute when he's embarrassed." "Why aren't you getting in the pool, Commander?" Andante leaned back, glancing over at him. For pretty much the same reason as you. Hearing that, Jyn immediately thought of the wound on his chest. It has to be because of that injury. He stared blankly at Andante's face. He actually looks a lot better than I expected. But 5 days shouldn't be enough for a full recovery. Jyn stared intently at his unmoving shoulder, speculating. Could he have taken an antidote? Or did another guide treat him? His brows furrowed in worry. I want to ask, but he'll probably react the same way he did last time. Then, Andante had narrowed his eyes, filled with displeasure, and called out coldly, Hayosop! Don't cross the line! Jin's expression immediately stiffened. He stared blankly ahead, mouth agape, speechless. All he could see in Andante's eyes back then was pure coldness. Remembering that, he lowered his head to look at his feet, silently swallowing the words he wanted to say. As the sunset quickly fell, a voice echoed from inside the villa. I'm gonna go out and buy some stuff to bring back for dinner with Fat. Immediately, another voice cut in. Wait, we can just order delivery, you know. A young man grabbed Fat by the collar and started dragging him off. We'll be right back. Hearing this, Jyn glanced in their direction. He silently mused to himself. The hierarchy in this guild is surprisingly obvious. Looking at the now quiet scene, he murmured under his breath, now that the loud ones are gone, it's finally peaceful. Quiet. Jin's gaze turned serious as he looked toward the corner, thinking about the person over there. Suddenly, Sandy, fresh from a shower with just a towel draped around his neck, came out and slung an arm around him. What's on your mind? Hyung. Jyn turned to look at him and answered, I'm trying to remember all the guild members' names. Sandy glanced thoughtfully to the side. You already know Kuda, right? Next, Sandy glanced at two people sitting quietly nearby. The twins over there, the one on the left is Lydian, and the one on the right is Dorian. They both have serious trust issues, so don't worry about them. Then he glanced somewhere else. The guy sleeping in the corner over there is Cindy. He's usually quiet, but he has episodes periodically. Hearing that, Jyn couldn't help but ask with doubt, periodically. Sandy tightened his arm around his neck and said, Yeah, he's a strange one. As you already know, no one in our guild is normal, he continued to chirp in Jin's ear. But why the sudden interest in everyone? Or, have you taken a liking to one of them? With a calm expression, Jyn turned to him. We're colleagues, so I should at least remember their names. Sandy turned to look straight ahead. You're so dedicated. But they ignored you first. Just forget about them. Hearing that, Jin's eyes widened in surprise. They ignored me? With a huge smile, he started nuzzling his head against Jin's shoulder like a cat. Hey, pay attention to me. I care about you way more than they do. Jyn glanced at Sandy, whose head was still on his shoulder, and asked coolly, What do you want from me? His eyes glinted faintly as he looked up, his hot breath ghosting over Jin's neck. I'm fine with whatever you do. Hearing this, Jyn gently raised a hand to stroke Seokni's hair. Looking at his fluffy hair, Jyn immediately thought of a kitten. Seokni saw this, smiled, and said, Looks like you enjoy touching people's hair. Jyn gently ruffled his hair and replied, Not really, but I think I get it now. Suddenly, he caught a faint scent. His eyes widened, a sexy smirk instantly forming on his lips as his gaze, glinting faintly, darted to the side. I can't take it anymore. He moved his face close to Jyn and asked, Does the commander treat you well? Hearing that, Jyn flinched, confused. What do you mean? Sweat beaded on his forehead, his brows furrowed tightly as his whole body felt paralyzed. Sandy gently bit his earlobe, making him jolt and tremble. I thought you didn't want to do anything more than the bare minimum, so what's with this reaction? You don't react like this during normal treatments. He gently pinched Jin's neck, his voice dropping low as he pressed. If we were binding partners, would you want to take things further? If so, you could choose me as your partner, you know. I would treat you so much better than the commander. Jyn quickly leaned away, escaping his embrace, then turned to face him. Sandy, it's not like that. Next, Sandy forcefully pushed Jyn down onto the ground, crying out, Hyung, treat me! He leaned down, pressing on top of him, a seductive smile on his lips as he went in for a kiss. Just then, Lydian rushed to his side, shouting, Don't you dare! Hearing this, Sandy's face contorted in annoyance. He scowled and yelled, What the hell, Lydian? Dorian stepped in front of Lydian, shouting, The commander told us to stop you from receiving treatment! His voice rang out, affirming, That's right! He said he'd throw you into the sea if you kept trying this. Hearing this, Sandy could only let out a regretful sigh. Lydian, with both hands on the table, stared straight ahead and asked probingly, "You know that, don't you?" Jyn, his face full of shock, stared blankly at him. "You are not allowed to lay a single finger on Hyo-seop." Sandy immediately sat up, raising a hand defensively. "Come on, nobody did anything." Hearing that, Lydian shot back, "You were about to!" With one hand on his hip, he denied it. "No, I wasn't." Dorian, beside him, immediately added, "You definitely wanted to. You would have continued if Lydian hadn't stopped you." Sandy's eyes widened as he yelled forcefully, "I didn't even touch him, and neither of you are his binding partners. So why do you keep meddling in my business?" Lydian rested his chin on his hand and reminded him, "Because his binding partner told us to. He wants us to stop anyone from asking Hyo-seop for help or anything else. Furthermore, while he's away..." Dorian raised a finger to add, "He said he'd pay us 10 million won for every intervention." He heard the two of them talking. He was furious. "Should I tell the commander that he tried to kiss Hyo-seop?" Sandy scowled, so angry he clenched his teeth, listening to the two of them chatter. "Lucky me, I just earned 10 million won. Sweet. Maybe I'll use it to buy new ammo." Lydian turned his head, holding up 2 fingers to negotiate. "But Sandy, I won't tell the commander if you give me 20 million won." "What do you say?" Dorian added with a calm face. "It'd be better for you. The commander is terrifying when he's angry. You're rich anyway, just sell one of your stones." Sandy looked down, cutting them off in a cold voice. "That's enough, you brats." Lydian frowned and muttered under his breath, "Come on, just pay the 20 million. Dorian, beside him, also frowned, clamoring, "You have to pay up." In the end, he couldn't hold back any longer and roared, "You bastards!" The fangs in Sandy's mouth quickly lengthened. A roar erupted from his mouth. Dorian immediately drew his gun, calmly calling out, "You want to fight? We don't mind." Lydian also gripped his gun, chiming in, "That's right. We've been bored lately." On the other side, Jyn tugged at his collar, letting out heavy gasps. "I can't breathe." He then jolted upon hearing a loud shout. "Stop!" Coda quickly approached, yelling loudly, "The commander will be back soon! Knock it off, you guys!" Lydian raised an eyebrow, looking over. "Why should we?" he asked. Dorian also turned his head. "Yeah, why?" He looked straight at the two of them and exclaimed, "Because you two started it!" Lydian pointed toward the heavily panting Jyn, tattling, "We just told the truth." Seokni tried to take advantage of him. Coda closed his eyes, shook his head gently, and called out, "If that was really his intention, he wouldn't have done it here." Hearing that, Dorian immediately retorted loudly, "You don't know him!" Sandy isn't the type to care about time or place. Without turning around, he reached out to support Jyn. "In any case, nothing happened. Actually, your aggressive energy is what's suffocating Hyo-seop." He gently patted the boy's shoulder, adding, "The commander asked me to let him know if anyone threatens Hyo-seop." In the next moment, Coda looked up, staring at the two of them as he asked, "Can I consider this a threat?" The two brothers, Lyden and Dorian, clicked their tongues. They turned and walked away. Coda glanced nearby. He saw Seokni also storming off in a huff. After a moment, he glanced at Jyn beside him and asked, "Are you okay?" Hearing him, he turned and replied softly, "I'm okay. Thank you, Coda." Coda closed his eyes and gently shook his head as if to say it was nothing. Seeing this, he immediately looked down. He let out a sigh. Things could have gotten much worse if Coda hadn't been there. But what did they mean by a bonded partner? Just then, Jyn looked up and called out softly, "Coda." He stared into his eyes and questioned, "Did the commander really tell you to report to him if someone threatened me?" Jin's eyes widened in surprise when Coda affirmed, "Yes." He looked straight at him and calmly explained, "Because the commander is my bonded partner." Jyn looked down, recalling the moment Sandy held him, and thought to himself, "No wonder he said those things to me, as if I already had a bonded partner." An image of his back suddenly appeared in his mind. "It seems like everyone thinks my bonded partner is Andante." Jin's brow furrowed in confusion. Why would he lie like that? I already told him I don't need a bonded partner. He thought back to that moment, wondering with doubt. So, the reason he refused treatment wasn't simply because he dislikes me? Jyn sat still, his mind racing uncontrollably. If he disliked me, he wouldn't have gone to such lengths to care for me. After a long moment, he finally looked up and asked, "Does the commander care for all the guild members like this?" Coda's denial was immediate. No. This is only because you're his bonded partner. Hearing that, Jyn touched the gland on his neck, thinking, but that's not right. Opposite him, Coda tilted his head slightly, staring intently at his face. After observing for just a moment, his brows knitted together and he shouted, "Wait a minute, could it be—" Jyn, still holding his neck, looked toward Coda in confusion. Just then, Andante walked into the room, one hand in his pocket. "We're back." He glanced in their direction and asked doubtfully, "What's wrong? Did you two have a fight?" Fred slammed a pile of cardboard boxes onto the table. "Do we really have to fight while we're enjoying our vacation?" A shirtless Sandy raised his middle finger and shouted, "That's hilarious coming from the biggest troublemaker of all." Andante, smiling brightly, walked over and pulled Jyn up by the hand. "Don't fight, you guys. You're scaring Hyosiap. We bought a ton of delicious food. Come take a look." He glanced around, thinking to himself, no one seems particularly upset. I guess they argue at this level pretty often. Andante looked at this table overflowing with delicious food and exclaimed, "Let's soothe our moods with some food." "We've got everything, from meat to seafood. Eat as much as you want." Jyn, however, looked at the bottles on the table and thought, it seems like most of these boxes are just alcohol. He sat down, picked up a glass, and took a small sip. Jyn took in the scene around him, thinking silently. Seeing how the atmosphere changed the instant Andante returned, I'm starting to understand how these espers, as stubborn as they are, can function as a guild. Until now. He thought about the group. Andante is always at the center, maintaining control over any conflicts that arise. He is the very embodiment of order in Onape, although I'm still not sure if this order comes from submission or respect. After the party ended, Jyn stood up and walked quietly towards the door. He slid it open, stepped outside, and looked around. Glancing down the hallway, he silently calculated, that smell of sulfur. This must be the right floor. Asterisk. He walked quickly towards the end of that hallway. Before Jyn was an exquisitely decorated bathing pool, its surfaces glowing with light. He immediately submerged himself in the water. Jyn leaned his head back, his whole body relaxing as he let out a soft sigh. He smiled as he looked ahead and murmured, "This is amazing. I'm so glad I didn't drink and stayed up this late. I would have regretted it if I didn't get to bathe at least once." Suddenly, the sound of distant footsteps made Jyn freeze. He immediately sat up straight, turning his head toward the sound in confusion. Who would come here at this hour? Information about this place instantly flashed through Jin's mind. This place is reserved for distinguished guests on the VIP floor, and there's only one other group here besides our guild. Jyn furrowed his brow as he felt the footsteps getting closer and closer. What should I do? He worried. They're about to come in. I'd better cover myself with a towel. Right after, two men walked in, chattering loudly. "You idiot, I told you to be careful!" "It's not as simple as you think." Suddenly, one of them saw Jyn and stopped short. "Hey, there's someone here." His companion heard him and shouted loudly, "Who cares? Let's just take a quick look and leave." That man sat down in the tub and let out a satisfied groan. "Ah, that hits the spot." His partner saw him and teased, "You sound like an old man." He relaxed, leaning against the edge of the tub. "Well, I'm not young anymore. After yesterday's dungeon raid, I'm still exhausted even after getting treated." His partner pointed at him and said loudly, "You're just tired from fooling around so much." The man burst out laughing and confirmed, "You got me." Jyn immediately stood up, sneaking a glance at the two of them. Why are they both espers? I should leave quietly before they notice me. Suddenly, the red-haired man behind him tilted his head and asked, "Are you on the VIP floor too?" He stared at him. "I saw you at the outdoor pool earlier. You were with your guild, weren't you?" Jyn turned to look and calmly replied, "Yes." The short-haired man beside him, grinning from ear to ear, exclaimed, "Right? This is my first vacation in Korea. It's truly amazing. I'm from overseas." Hearing this, Jyn glanced over and said, "I see," while thinking to himself, "I need to figure out how to get away." The two of them quickly closed in on him. The short-haired man raised an eyebrow and asked, "You're an A rank, right?" Jyn froze instantly, his eyes widening as he stared at them. The red-haired man, with one hand on his hip, said, "Anyone ranked lower couldn't afford this hotel." His partner beside him chimed in, "Since we've run into each other like this, let's have a little chat." Hearing this, Jyn quickly turned his back to them. "I've been here for a while, so I should get going." The short-haired man reached out and grabbed his arm to stop him. "Hey, come on now." "Don't be like that." Startled by the grab, Jyn whipped his head around. He then forcefully yanked his arm back, sending water splashing everywhere. The short-haired man's arm remained outstretched. Surprised, he exclaimed. Jyn narrowed his eyes, holding an arm up defensively. "Stay away from me!" He watched them warily, thinking to himself, "If I show any fear right now, there's no telling what they'll do to me." The red-haired man stared at him and let out a mocking laugh. "Unbelievable. An Esper from the Great Empire's Guild wandering around here? All alone. What do you think would happen if you ran into some psycho?" Jin's expression turned cold as he scowled. "Are you threatening me right now?" The man immediately held up his hands. "No way, no way! We have no desire to get punished by the NSA." Jyn lowered his head and quickly turned away. "Then please move aside." As Jin's back was turned, the short-haired man called out, "Oh, come on now." The red-haired man beside him chimed in, "You don't have to be so on guard. We just want to talk a little." Jyn felt their hands reaching for him and thought frantically, "I have to move now!" In the next instant, water from the pool erupted high into the air, obscuring his vision completely. He was shoved back down into the water by their hands. As water dripped from his hair, Jin's eyes shot open in shock when he heard their voices add, "Those punishments!" The corner of the short-haired man's mouth curled into a smirk as he asked, "Did you know those only apply to regular guilds?" The red-haired man stood up, revealing a tattoo on his hip. An Esper from overseas with a tattoo. He slowly drew closer and stated calmly, "We're not an officially registered guild." "An unregistered guild?" The short-haired man's lips curled as he pressed down hard on Jin's shoulder. "In other words, the NSA's laws don't apply to us." Hearing this, Jin's eyes widened in fear as he thought, could they be from a dark guild? Information about such organizations flashed through Jin's mind. They were criminal guilds that no country could control. He sat there, stunned, thinking. Just as darkness exists where there is light if there are official government-backed guilds like the NSA, then there are also groups who handle the dirty work. Jyn sat frozen, his thoughts racing. Even though many guilds, including the NSA, have tried to apprehend them. He glanced at the two men. They have so many highly skilled members, making them impossible to catch. Seeing Jyn still frozen in place, the short-haired man gave a slight smile. He prodded, "Do you understand the situation you're in right now? Mr. Guide?" Water dripped down his face. "Is this why?" And the commander said I needed a binding partner? I was such a fool to only realize it when it's too late. Jin's mind suddenly flashed back to a moment when he was sitting by a window, looking out. He remembered the scene vividly. "I've been detached from reality for too long." Jyn lowered his head, silently listening to the short-haired man. "It's always been my dream to fuck a tall, muscular guide. I guess today's my lucky day." Hearing this, his partner immediately exclaimed, "You got some weird-ass taste." He raised an eyebrow, turned, and laughed loudly. "You just don't get it. Seeing a muscular guy cry is a huge turn-on." The red-haired man retorted, "Give me a break. Women or slender guys are way better." Meanwhile, Jyn, with his head lowered, sensed the faint smell of pheromones in the air. It felt like his head was being submerged in bleach. The short-haired man kept releasing his pheromones, glancing at Jyn. "You gotta at least have a taste before you knock it." Jyn caught the scent. It caused his aura to turn a pale blue. With his head down, he felt their arms tighten their grip on him. "How can I escape this?" "There's no way to call for help, and no one is coming." Jyn gritted his teeth, telling himself, "But that doesn't mean I should give up." Suddenly, a hand shot out from nearby. Model, Andante appeared and forcefully slapped away the hand gripping Jin's shoulder. Jyn immediately sensed something was different and looked up with a start. He glanced over in that direction, thinking in astonishment. My mind suddenly cleared. Right after, Andante looked down at Jyn, smiled, and asked, "You still here, sweetie?" The two men across from them heard his voice. He asked gently and caringly, "Are you okay?" Jyn immediately closed his eyes and let out a soft sigh. "Yes." Andante raised his arm, quickly wrapping it around Jin's neck and leaning in close. He murmured, "Did you skip the drinks earlier because you wanted to come to the spa? You should have told me. I would have come with you." Jyn lowered his head and replied softly, "I'm sorry." He placed a gentle kiss on Jin's hair, his eyes flashing with a cold light as he glanced at the two men. "Don't worry. What matters is that I got here just in time." Andante gently released his arm with a sigh. Having such an attractive guide by my side just keeps attracting all sorts of pests. This has happened before. His eyes flashed with a sharp, cold light, and the corner of his mouth curved into a sarcastic smile. And now, it's happening again. The short-haired man's expression immediately darkened. He demanded loudly, "Who the hell are you? How did you get in here?" "That's right." Hearing this, Andante calmly replied, "I walked in, of course." The red-haired man shouted, "That's not what we're asking. How did both of us not even notice you walking in?" Andante, looking completely calm, raised a hand to clean out his ear. "Obviously, it's because you guys have a skill issue, so don't go barking at me." The two of them looked as if they'd been struck by lightning, gritting their teeth as they asked, "Are you being serious?" The short-haired man shot him a look and yelled, "You have no idea who you're messing with." Andante, still completely unconcerned, asked, "A moment ago you said something about an unregistered guild, didn't you? Is it because you're all too weak to get registered? Is that it?" He gave a broad smile and a shrug, his voice dripping with contempt. "And yet you still recklessly go after my guide? What a bunch of bastards," the red-haired man cursed angrily. "Bastard?" The short-haired man immediately threatened, "We could kill you right now, and no one would ever find out." He grit his teeth hard and threatened loudly, "Watch your mouth! Killing a despicable piece of trash like you is nothing for us members of the Dark Guild." Hearing that, Andante couldn't hold it in any longer. He let out a snort of derisive laughter. His eyes flashed gold and the corners of his lips curled up as he repeated, "The Dark Guild?" The two men opposite him frowned, stunned, as they heard Andante's voice ring out. "Sorry, but it's just so ridiculous that you guys would introduce yourselves as members. I mean, the Dark Guild? Come on." "If that were me, I'd take that secret to my grave out of sheer embarrassment." The short-haired man, enraged, raised his arm and charged straight at him. "You bastard!" Seeing this, Andante couldn't help but let the corners of his lips curve up. "Let me tell you guys a little something." His next words made the charging man freeze in his tracks. "If you guys really belong to the Dark Guild, then soon enough your arms and legs will be thrown to the dogs." Andante stood calmly in place, hands in his pockets, and continued with a smile. "As for your other parts, they'll be butchered and displayed in the middle of Seoul. And once your corpses have rotted, and they'll be thrown into dungeons as monster feed, you'll forever be a cautionary tale for your colleagues." The short-haired man's eyes widened as he thought in shock. "What the hell? It sounds absurd, but it's sending shivers down my spine." The corner of Andante's mouth twitched up into a smirk as he continued, "And that's not all. Hearing his cold voice, Jyn also turned his head with a start to look at him. "Your entire families will be imprisoned and forced to produce medicine for other espers, until their very last breath, and it will all be your fault." The short-haired man heard this and thought in terror, "This guy is completely insane. Stop spouting nonsense!" Andante, a broad smile on his face, tilted his head slightly and asked, "You think that's nonsense?" The man immediately turned and headed for the edge of the bath. "He's fucking crazy. I'm not getting involved with a psycho." Jyn stared blankly after the two retreating figures, while the man beside him still had a smile on his face. He leaned down and said gently, "Well, problem solved, huh?" Jyn turned to look at him and asked tentatively, "Did you just say all that crazy stuff to make them leave?" Hearing that, Andante denied it. "Not at all, I was telling the truth." He turned his head to watch their retreating figures and explained, "The Dark Guild is notorious because they operate in the underworld and avoid the public eye. They don't have an official name or any way to describe them, so no one knows who they are or where to find them," Andante added, his eyes on their hastily fleeing backs. "They try to avoid everyone's attention because they need to operate discreetly, but it seems those idiots thought otherwise." His eyes flashed a bright yellow. He stared intently in their direction. Andante remained motionless, murmuring under his breath, "Those who can't foresee the consequences of their actions will die soon enough." "Yes." Jyn followed his gaze. He heard Andante add, "I was simply reminding them of that." Right after, Andante looked down and asked with concern, "Anyway, are you hurt anywhere? They didn't attack you, did they?" He let out a sigh and replied, "I'm fine. Thanks to you." Jyn closed his eyes, bowed his head, and reproached himself in a small voice. "Thank you so much, and I'm also very sorry. It seems I've caused you a lot of trouble." Andante put both hands on his hips and laughed loudly. "No need to apologize. It's not even your fault. It's my job to protect my guide." Jyn lowered his head, a flicker of sadness in his eyes. No matter how you look at it, I'm so indebted to him now. Andante's voice immediately rang out beside him. I've received my reward for helping you. Jyn's eyes widened in surprise. When Jyn looked up, he saw Andante smirking, staring right at him. The next moment, he made OK signs with both hands, put them over his eyes, and gasped dramatically. That's when Jyn realized what was happening, and his whole face flushed red. Jyn yelped and immediately pulled his towel up to cover himself. Seeing this, Andante covered his own mouth to stifle a laugh, teasing, "Covering up like that just makes you look even more tempting." His gaze was drawn to the mark on Jyn's chest. "And it looks like I'm seeing something." Andante touched his chin, staring at the spot, and added, "that I'm not supposed to see." Jyn wrapped the towel tightly around himself. "It's just, I'm not used to people seeing my body." Andante, resting his chin on his knee, replied, "I get it." He gently unbuttoned his shirt, revealing the wound on his chest. "I completely empathize with you," he said. Next, Andante reached down and quickly unzipped his pants. He took off his shirt, revealing a toned physique and a fresh red wound in the center of his chest. Jyn turned his head to stare at Andante's chest. His wound looked much better. Did he get help from another guide? A slight smirk played on Andante's lips as he teased softly, "So why don't we enjoy the spa together? As men? I think this might help you feel less awkward." Jyn sat still, watching Andante get into the pool, and agreed, "All right." As soon as he stepped in, water splashed everywhere. Andante wiped the water from his face. Jyn silently watched his back, not moving an inch. He gently clutched the hem of his clothes under the water, thinking, "I want to get out of here right now, but this towel isn't big enough to cover my lower half, and I don't want to trade that for exposing my chest to him." Then Jin's eyes fell on Andante, who was brushing his hair back, looking radiant. And he's not the polite type who would just turn away either. I guess I'll have to wait for him to leave first. The steam from the hot spring rose quickly, and the space was incredibly quiet. After a moment, Jyn couldn't help but call out in a small voice, "Sir!" Andante turned to look at him and answered. Jyn looked straight at him and said loudly, "The other members of the guild said that I have a bonded partner, and that it's you." His face was calm, completely unfazed as he replied, "I told them that on purpose." Andante stared at Jyn. He explained, "They're the type to go crazy the moment they hear a new guide doesn't want a bonded partner. Honestly, I can't trust a single one of them." His voice continued to echo, "And you're only realizing that now? I thought you would have known since you were treating Fred." Hearing this, Jin's eyes widened in surprise. I didn't know anything at all." Jyn recalled Fred, dazed. He thought to himself, "So, he protected me by pretending to be my bonded partner." Thinking back, when I was giving Fred emergency treatment, he seemed especially wary of Andante. I just thought it was because he was the commander, but I never expected. Andante walked quickly towards him, step by step, and asked, "Does this make you uncomfortable? If you want to choose someone else as your bonded partner, then clearly I'm at fault." Hearing this, Jyn raised both hands and waved them dismissively. "Not at all. I'm just grateful, that's all." He looked down at the water's surface, thinking to himself, he could have easily blamed me after what happened, since I was the one who refused to have a bonded partner. But everything turned out so differently than I expected. I don't know what to say. Andante leaned against the edge of the pool, gently comforting him. "Come on, don't worry about it. I'm actually incredibly grateful that you've become a part of this guild." Jin's thin lips trembled slightly as he spoke in a small voice. "But you didn't accept treatment from me." He stared intently in Andante's direction, asking hesitantly, "Are you dissatisfied with me?" Hearing this, Andante's eyes widened in surprise. He leaned back against the pool's edge, tilted his head to the sky, and burst out laughing. "No way! No! How could I possibly be dissatisfied with an S-class guide?" But Jyn wouldn't let it go, pressing on. "Then why did you refuse treatment from me? Do you already have another half?" Andante closed his eyes and smiled, denying it. No, it's not like that." He closed his eyes, his whole body relaxing, and explained, "It's just, I really don't like it." Hearing that, Jyn was so shocked he couldn't help but exclaim, "What?" Andante then turned to look at him and continued, "I don't like receiving treatment. It makes me feel dependent on a guide. And I don't like the feeling of someone touching my body." At that, Jyn, looking completely baffled, replied softly, I see. He looked at Andante's relaxed face and thought, whether you love it or hate it, treatment is a matter of life and death for an Esper. How can he refuse it as if he were turning down food he dislikes? Jyn's gaze shifted to Andante's thin lips. He should understand that danger better than anyone. Andante placed both hands on the edge of the pool. I've always lived like this, so don't worry. They've created some pretty good drugs these days, enough to help me survive. Hearing this, Jyn immediately understood. So that's what helped his wound heal a bit. I'm glad it's not because he dislikes me. But Jyn's face was filled with sadness, an unconcealable worry. This doesn't change the fact that Espers need treatment to survive. Basically, refusing treatment is almost like saying, I'm ready to die at any moment. Seeing his expression, Andante smiled and asked, What's wrong? Are you worried about me? His voice echoed throughout the area. Treatment is directly related to your life. Yes, I suppose I'll accept treatment when I'm actually on the brink of death. I don't want to die just yet. A smirk played on Andante's lips. His eyes flashed with a golden light as he glanced sideways. His gaze immediately fell on Jyn's muscular shoulders and arms. Andante's voice called out, making Jyn look over. Actually, Hiroseo? He smiled brightly, leaning his face in close. I think I'll accept it, if you agree to let me pin you down. Hearing this, Jyn pressed his lips together, hesitating to answer. Seeing this, Andante just smiled slightly, then turned away. Honestly, you look so sexy, I might not even realize you're treating me while we're doing it. He raised a hand and laughed loudly. But I'm not asking you to do that or anything. Relax. I'm just saying. Jyn's eyes widened as he wondered, is he serious? Or is he just messing with me? Jyn pulled the towel wrapped around him tighter, closed his eyes, and sank half his face into the water, staying perfectly still. Whatever, he thought. After a long while, Jyn snapped awake with wide eyes. Ah. Dante, seeing that he had opened his eyes while on his back, spoke with concern. You're awake. Jyn asked uncertainly, What happened? He carried him forward quickly and replied, You passed out in the middle of our conversation. As he walked, Andante added, You really scared me. You know, I think what I said shocked you. Hearing that, Jyn was startled and thought to himself, I passed out? No. Without turning his head, he chided, If you were feeling dizzy, you should have gotten out. Why did you stay in? Hearing that, Jyn wrapped his arms tightly around Andante's neck. I'm sorry. I'm okay now. You can put me down. He gently set him down, still holding on to him worriedly. Still dizzy? No, I'm fine, thanks, Jyn replied. But my clothes... He looked down at the shirt he was wearing and asked, Did you dress me? Andante nodded affirmatively. Yeah, I was the only one there, remember? Jyn covered his face with his hands, thinking, I tried so hard to hide it, but it was all for nothing. He mumbled quietly. Did you see everything? Yep, Andante replied with a carefree smile. Of course I dressed you. You looked so tempting, I almost pounced on you right then and there. An image of himself laying Jyn down on the floor immediately flashed through his mind. Then, Andante's gaze fell upon the mark on Jyn's chest. His eyes narrowed as he heard Jyn's probing voice. Just asking. Seeing Jyn let out a soft sigh of relief, Andante asked, What else did you expect? He draped his own shirt over Jyn's shoulders. Don't overthink it. You still need to recover. Everyone has secrets, and I'm not interested in other people's. Jyn walked forward and said gratefully, Thank you. Hearing that, Andante teased, You've thanked me a lot today, but I haven't really done much. Jyn stopped, let out a breath, and retorted, That's not true. You've done a lot for me. A slight smirk played on Andante's lips as he asked softly, Really? Just then, Andante reached out, grabbed the hem of the shirt Jyn was wearing, and pulled him sharply closer. Seeing Jyn's face right in front of his, he smiled faintly. Andante's lips curled as he brought his face even closer to Jyn's. He whispered into his ear, In that case, could you do something for me? His eyes flashed with a golden light as he added, It's nothing big. Suddenly, a dark shadow appeared swiftly in the sky, making both of them look up at the same time. In the pitch-black night sky, a streak of purple light shot across, emitting dazzling flashes. Then it quickly began to swirl. In the blink of an eye, it formed a portal. Jyn looked up at the sky, startled. A dungeon gate? Oh no. I have to report this to the authorities right away. His eyes widened with worry as he glanced to the side. Across from him, an irrepressible smile spread across Andante's lips, his whole body buzzing with excitement. Jyn froze on the spot, utterly confused. What the hell? He stared at Andante, wondering, why does he look so happy? Just then, Flash walked up from behind, exclaiming, "Whoa, that's an impressive gate." Sandy, with her hands on her hips, laughed and added, "It's not that big, but it looks pretty dangerous." Flash rubbed his head and cheered, "There must be an awesome monster inside." Sandy shielded her eyes to get a better look and asked eagerly, "So who's going in?" Commander Flat immediately raised a hand and shouted, "You already know!" "I can't. I'm still tired from the last dungeon." Andante bowed his head with a small smile and reassured him, "Don't worry, I won't make you go." Lydia immediately shot her hand up and yelled, "Let us go, please." Dorian, next to her, also raised his hand. "We can handle it, Commander." He raised a finger and objected, "No, I don't think this dungeon is suitable for you two. It's small, but it could be very deep. Guns will be useless against a large swarm of monsters." Hearing that, the two of them lowered their hands, their faces filled with disappointment. Andante turned to look at the gate and said, "I think it's best if I go alone." Flat, hearing this, yelped, "Huh? You're planning to go in there alone without any treatment? How many lives do you have?" Andante replied with a broad smile, "It's fine. I'm in a pretty good mood today." Flat couldn't help but curse, "Damn it, are you even human?" Lydia wrapped her arms around her neck and told Flat, "You idiot! Our leader was never human to begin with." Next to her, Dorian crossed his arms and nodded in agreement. Jyn, who had been silent until now, spoke with a trembling voice. "What are you guys talking about? We need to contact the authorities or ask another guild for help right now." Andante, with his hands in his pockets, glanced over at him. "And what if the gate closes while we're waiting? It looks like we could find something interesting in there. We should go in quickly." He looked up with a grin. "Looking at its size, I'm guessing it's a C-rank dungeon." Jyn heard this and asked doubtfully, "Key rank?" "Model. But you just said it's very deep inside." From inside the hellgate, a purple light glowed and a growl echoed out. His face went pale as he tilted his head back to stare at it. "That scary thing is just a C-rank." Andante, with a big smile on his face, patted his own chest reassuringly. "Don't worry, I've cleared out low-level dungeons by myself plenty of times before. I'll make it quick." Then he looked over at the group and instructed, "Take good care of Hyosiop while I'm gone." Sandy immediately shot his hand up with a cheerful reply, "Roger that, boss." Right after, Andante dashed straight into the hellgate. Jyn watched his figure disappear inside the gate, worried. Will he really be okay? Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded by his ear, making him widen his eyes. "That guy's definitely gonna die." Jyn turned his head to see the red-haired guy from before, smirking with both hands in his pockets. "I'll bet 100 million he gets completely wiped out." Flash raised an eyebrow, turned his head, and asked, "Who are these guys?" The silver-haired guy smirked and laughed. "You'd be shocked if you knew who we were." He didn't even pay them any mind, laughing as he said to Sandy, "Want to bet on when the commander will be back?" Sandy held up one finger and shouted, "You bet! I bet 1 hour." Those two stared wide-eyed, frozen in place, as they listened to Flat's group making a scene. Are these guys insane? How could that guy possibly clear a dungeon in 1 hour? "Come on! He went in alone, so there's nothing that can slow him down." Flat, with an excited look on his face, shouted loudly, "He just cleared a dungeon 2 days ago!" "You idiot! I bet 3 hours!" Sandy, not backing down, yelled back, "You're the moron! A C-rank dungeon is nothing for him. He won't even break a sweat." Then he let out a breath and added, "He'll probably just laze around in there. Maybe toss out a few debuffs at the entrance." Hearing that, Flat was startled and asked, "Really?" Sandy smirked, pointing a finger at him. "It's obvious. Since he brought you along, he must have wanted you to be a distraction." Hearing this, Flat's eyes went wide with shock as he asked back, "But I thought the plan was just for us to find a way through." He immediately flew into a rage, screaming, "What? So I was the only one working my ass off that day?" Sandy held up both hands and shrugged. "Idiot." Flad clutched his head, grinding his teeth. "Just wait until I see him again." Commander Lydian calmly scolded, "Idiot." Dorian also glanced over and chimed in, "Moron." Watching the four of them, Jyn whispered with a sigh, "Are they really not worried about the commander at all?" The short-haired guy, who had been ignored until now, angrily shouted, "You bastards! Every last one of you is pissing me off!" His voice lowered as he yelled, You're just a bunch of C-rank failures. Hearing that, Jyn pointed over there and asked, Do you know them, Hyung? Jyn also looked over and replied, I've seen their faces around. The two stood still. They heard the short-haired guy's noisy rant. They say the most ignorant are often the bravest. Why would you send your commander straight to his grave like that? That guy's probably been torn to shreds by now. Jyn flinched, his whole body freezing as he heard the two of them carrying on. Come on. I mean, there's no way he could know that Dungeon is an S-rank. He lowered his head and asked in a small voice, An S-rank dungeon? What are you talking about? Jyn glared over at the two of them and snapped, Keep it down! Besides, the commander clearly said it was a C-rank dungeon. The red-haired guy's lips curled up as he let out a snort of laughter. S-rank dungeons can't be judged by their size. You're so naive to think that dangerous dungeon is just a C-rank simply because it's small. Hearing this, he lifted his head and looked towards the hellgate. Wait, then... Jyn stared blankly at it. I never want to experience that again. His hands, hanging by his sides, wouldn't stop trembling with fear. That's why I chose this guild. Because I thought it was safe. Koda quickly walked over to Jyn and called out, Hyoseop! Lydian also gripped his arm tightly, comforting him. Relax, everything's going to be okay. Sandy next to them also said with a bright smile, Hyung, like I said before, you really don't need to worry about the commander. He'll be back in 1 hour just like I said. The short-haired guy over there smirked and chuckled, mockingly. 1 hour? Please, that guy will be dead before he ever comes back. Hearing that, Flat shot him a cold glare. He walked step by step until he was right in front of him. I heard what you guys said earlier. 100 million for our commander getting completely wiped out, right? His voice was full of provocation. That's right, so what? Flat ignored him and continued. All right then, let's bet. I bet 100 million that he'll live. Sandy, beside him, also held up a finger and said with a smile, I'll bet the same. The short-haired guy crossed his arms and laughed loudly. Fine by me. I'll even give you guys 1 billion won if that guy is still alive. Flat held up 2 fingers and asked, If you both bet 1 billion, that's 2 billion total, right? Hey, you twins, you in? Lydian immediately joined in. You bet I am. I'll bet 900 million. Dorian glanced over and called out, Me too, I bet 900 million. As soon as it was recorded, Flat tossed the recording device towards the two of them and yelled, You guys bet the most. So you have to make sure you collect all their money and give each of us 100 million. Okay. Jyn, watching from the side, frowned and thought to himself, should we really be making bets at a time like this? We're talking about the commander's survival here. At that very moment, the hellgate high above let out a loud bang and began to rapidly close. Hearing it, he instantly looked up, his eyes widening in disbelief. The gate is about to close. Hey everyone, this creator is starving for likes. Enjoy the story, folks. If you like it, please support me with a like. And for any newcomers, leave a sub so we can see each other again. Ha ha ha. Standing before the gate of death, Jyn was worried. Once it closed, there would be no escape. He had to get out of there. Just then, a member of the Dark Guild spoke up sarcastically. I knew it. There's no way he's coming out of there alive. Probably couldn't even last 30 minutes. How embarrassing. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Jyn anxiously looked all around. We have to do something. Watching the chaotic energy, Sandy analyzed with extreme rationality. Rushing into a closing gate is not a good idea. Besides, when he's fighting alone, the commander, it is likely using a lot of his strength. If we go in, we'll just get in his way. Hearing this, Jyn was stunned, wondering to himself, then what are we supposed to do? Suddenly, the gate began to shake violently. Seeing this, he was shocked and screamed internally, No! Jyn looked around in a panic. Why is everyone just standing around watching? The gate flickered more and more unstably in midair. He watched, pale and dazed. Then, Jyn sorrowfully lowered his head, powerlessly accepting the harsh reality. In a situation like this, I guess there's nothing I can do. Jyn choked up, lost in his tangled thoughts. But I haven't even had a chance to repay him for everything he's done for me. Just then, Sandy suddenly spoke, cutting through his train of thought. Hearing her, he unconsciously looked up. A tearing sound ripped through from inside the gate as air and wind swirled together. A hand suddenly shot out and grabbed the edge of the rift. From the dark abyss, Andante stepped out majestically and gave a radiant smile. I'm back. Overcome with emotion as if witnessing a miracle, Jyn collapsed to his knees. "He's alive!" He walked over and teased, "So how did it go?" "Pretty intense, huh, Commander?" As soon as he finished, he replied with a smile, "Not too bad." After that, Andante thoughtfully looked at the cut on his palm. A second later, blood suddenly spurted out and ran down his arm. Andante smiled and added, "But it was a bit tough." Flash's eyes widened in admiration. "A bit?" he scoffed jokingly. "I thought it would take you at least an hour." "You're a real monster, Commander." He smirked, smugly accepting the praise. "Thanks for the compliment." At the same time, the stunned members of the Dark Guild cried out, "No way!" Andante bluntly mocked them. "You guys are still here? Tough little bugs, aren't you?" They looked at each other in terror, ashen-faced. An Esper who could clear an S-rank dungeon alone and survive, that could only mean... Seeing the group planning to make a quick getaway, the twin brothers spoke up to stop them. "Where do you think you're going?" They calmly blocked the path. "You have to pay up." "That's right. You guys each owe us 1 billion. Watching the losers, their faces drained of all color, Sandy remarked, "Serves them right for betting against those troublesome twins." Flash agreed scornfully. "What can you do? Life's tough for idiots." He then walked over and asked, "Did you find anything useful in there?" Andante stated frankly, "I'll give you the details tomorrow. For now, I'm a bit tired after clearing that dungeon by myself." Just as he was about to dismiss everyone, Jyn suddenly grabbed his arm. "All right, let's go." He saw the bleeding wound and cried out in alarm, his heart clenching. "Commander, you're back." Jin's exclamation immediately made the atmosphere tense. "It's so serious," just then. Sandy urgently pressed, "Commander, you need to get treatment right away." Andante remained nonchalant. "It'll heal on its own." A moment later, he suddenly remembered something. He then looked straight into Jin's eyes with a profound gaze. "I almost forgot. While I was in the dungeon, I remembered what I wanted to talk to you about. Is my offer for you to grant me one request still valid?" As soon as he finished speaking, Jin's heart began to race. He nodded. "Of course. At a time like this, he must need me to heal him. Considering the state of that wound, I don't have any other choice. I'll heal him with everything I've got." After mentally preparing himself, he looked up at him. "As long as it's not going all the way, it's fine. Please, tell me what it is." Without hesitation, Andante asked, "Can you keep this a secret?" Jyn stared blankly for a moment, then agreed. "Yes, of course." A second later, he was stunned by the strange request, as the man winked and instructed, "I want to keep the appearance of the gate and my entry into it today a secret." Hearing this, Jyn froze, asking suspiciously, "Why are you asking me for this favor instead of for treatment?" Andante questioned him back, making him flustered. "Why would getting treatment from you become something I have to beg for? You're our guide, after all." Jyn, embarrassed, explained awkwardly, "Well, yes, that's true. You don't have to see it as a favor you need to ask for, but—" He trailed off, scratching his head. "All right. I won't tell anyone." "I don't know why I even thought of that," Andante said, turning to change the subject. "Thanks. You're the best. We're leaving in this morning, so let's get back to our rooms." Jyn stubbornly followed behind him. "So, when are you going to get treated?" "Tomorrow morning will be too late." Andante looked confused. "Treatment? What treatment?" Jyn grabbed him and demanded, "You're not planning on getting treated? You just said I didn't have to ask you for it." Andante stated his position firmly. "Exactly, because I don't need it." He repeated his earlier warning. "I already told you at the spa. I don't like receiving treatment, so don't worry about it." Meanwhile, Jyn stubbornly stepped forward. "Yes, but the situation is different now. You're seriously injured." A moment later, Andante emanated a crushing pressure and gave a final warning. "Let me remind you one more time. Don't worry about me!" As soon as he finished, Jyn yelled in desperation, "If an Esper doesn't receive treatment, they'll go berserk!" The man replied nonchalantly, "I know." Without pausing, Jyn tried to appeal to his reason. "But once you lose control, it'll be just like before. Everything will be over." Just then, Andante growled his name, and the air seemed to freeze. "Hayoseoff!" He glared like a crazed animal. "How many times do I have to say it for it to get through your head?" Then Andante declared with a hateful tone, "Regardless of my condition or my guide, I hate receiving treatment from anyone, even an S-class like you." His piercing golden eyes threatened to devour him whole. "So can you just stop now? If you keep this up, I'll really lose it." Faced with the harsh rejection, Jyn stood frozen. He cut me off. He stared at the man's lonely back, a wave of fear mixed with sorrow washing over him. I know I shouldn't suggest it again. Jyn shuddered, realizing a horrifying truth. But his eye color. At the same time, painful memories of other espers flashed through his mind, the ones who went berserk. Never forget, these are the eyes of an esper on the verge of an outburst. The man had mumbled in his delirium, I ended up like this because you abandoned me. Look, the haunting bright yellow of the man's eyes in front of him terrified Jyn. His eyes are the exact same shade of gold as back then. In that instant, he made up his mind. I won't let anyone face that horrific death. Not again. Never. Jyn took a deep breath and gathered all his courage to utter, I have a proposal. Andante turned to look at him suspiciously. A what? A moment later, Jin's face flushed as he stammered out the terms of his bold trade-off. So, I was asking if... As he spoke, he squeezed his eyes shut, casting his pride aside. Would it be okay if I agreed to let you top me? Seeing the man remain silent, Jyn summoned all his strength to repeat the humiliating offer. If I agree to let you top me, would that be okay? That's right. Hearing this, Andante's face went blank. He was stunned for a moment, then a wicked smirk played on his lips. I don't quite understand what you're trying to say. Jyn sighed and brought up what happened at the resort. You said it yourself at the spa, that if I let you take the lead, you'd be willing to accept it. Meanwhile, he anxiously thought to himself, if he's avoiding treatment because he hates the feeling of someone else's energy flowing into his body, then in that case, Jyn turned his head away and proposed a stimulating method of treatment. If you need a distraction during the treatment, like something to counteract the discomfort, he hesitated before continuing, then perhaps I could use my mouth. That's right. Hearing this, Andante let out a soft chuckle. He stepped closer, staring into Jin's trembling eyes. Do you have any idea what you're saying? Next, Andante roughly grabbed Jin's chin, forcing it up. He leaned in close and whispered a possessive threat. You have no idea what I could shove into this mouth of yours. But, as Andante said his name, Jyn caught the thick scent of rust, Hyosiov, the smell of blood. At the same time, the man gave a lewd smirk. What you just said sounds a lot like you're inviting me to bed. Andante pressed his body against him, his breath thick with a dangerous scent that filled the space. Am I right to interpret it that way? Jyn pressed his lips together, speechless. A second later, he nodded, accepting the trade. Using my mouth is fine. After all, I'm a guide. Hearing this, the man burst out laughing. Andante stared at him with amusement. I thought I was a sharp judge of character. But you're hard to read. He tightened his grip on Jin's chin and recalled his previous impression. When I heard you say you didn't need a binding partner, I thought you were a player. But then you act like a total virgin. With Anante's spicy teasing and the dirty things he was saying, Jyn, completely overwhelmed, nervously looked away. He could only stand there and take it. Was he just going to keep squeezing his face like this? The air was getting too heavy. Jyn opened his mouth to speak, but Andante's gaze dropped to his small lips as he made a dark remark. But there's one problem. If you tried to take it all in that tiny mouth, it would tear. After imagining the scene, he chuckled teasingly. Then you wouldn't be able to eat your little octopus sausages. It's fine, Jyn answered firmly. Seeing his determination, Andante asked coldly, You really want to treat me that badly, huh? Jyn nodded, confirming, Because you're in danger. Seemingly moved by his sincerity, he let out a soft sigh. Is that so? Jyn emphasized again. Yes. At that, Andante finally released his hand and conceded, I get it. In that moment, he leaned down and agreed, Fine, I'll accept your help. You sure know how to charm a man, don't you? But I'll be putting something else in your mouth, Andante mused, implying, a commander shouldn't be tearing the mouth of his own subordinate, now should he? Seeing his unusual silence, Jyn began to worry about what was coming next. What are you thinking about? The words had barely left his mouth when Andante placed a soft kiss on Jin's lips. After feeling the touch of skin, he tried to reassure himself with an optimistic thought. This is better than what I imagined. However, the sly man skillfully slid his tongue inside, startling Jyn. Andante led perfectly as their two wet tongues met. Mesmerized, he clung to Andante's sturdy shoulders. The cunning Andante slid deeper, causing Jyn's body to suddenly stiffen amidst a hazy, fragrant smoke. He began to feel his head spin. "I keep smelling this strange scent," Jyn gasped, as if the whole world was turning upside down before his eyes. "I'm so dizzy." He panted with exhaustion. Just then, Jyn shuddered, feeling as if he were being powerfully invaded. He thought dazedly, "It's like he's swallowing me whole." Jyn was lost in the passionate kiss. He groggily, slowly opened his eyes to look around. Meanwhile, the strength in his body was suddenly draining away. "He's draining me so fast, I think the side effects are kicking in." A numbing sensation spread throughout his body, making him unable to control his limbs. "My fingers are starting to stiffen." At that moment, Andante gently pulled Jyn's head back. Faced with such a brutal possession, his chest tightened. "I can't breathe." After trying to resist to no avail, Jyn struggled to push him away. "I'm at my limit." However, Andante refused to let go, instead thrusting his tongue deeper. He sucked greedily while his hand slid downward. The moment they broke apart, Andante had completely lost control. "I can't hold back anymore." Just then, his eyes turned a brilliant gold. Jyn's eyes widened in panic. "What? But I've healed him so much already." Feeling his Esper instincts surging too powerfully, Andante closed his eyes and swore, "Damn it." Then he resumed their passionate kiss. He felt the energy in his body being sucked away as if by a black hole. Jyn was stunned. "My energy is flowing into him against my will." He sobbed, wondering, "Is this forced treatment?" Jin's hand trembled violently as he let out a weak plea. "Commander, I can't." Andante paid him no mind, sucking directly on his lips. Jin's eyes grew hazy and dim, unsure of what to do next. He lost his balance and fainted. Seeing him like that, he asked doubtfully, "What's wrong?" Andante lifted Jin's body and made a decisive offer. "Let's just go all the way, shall we? Maybe that'll satisfy me a little." He looked into Jin's tear-filled eyes and gave a triumphant smile. "You don't look like you hate this either." But amidst the storm of desire, Andante whispered a promise. "What do you say?" "I'll be gentle." Feeling his strength completely depleted, Jyn stammered his refusal. I can't anymore." Hearing this, he bit Jin's lip to silence him and continued their dramatic game. Thinking fast, Andante buried his face in Jin's neck and inhaled greedily. "The scent you're giving off is so strong. Just a little more." Meanwhile, Jin's mind was completely blank. "This scent. I can't think straight at all." Just then, Coda stepped forward to intervene. "Commander, you should stop now!" Hearing that, he slowly loosened his grip. Jyn, exhausted, was panting heavily. Andante stroked his hair and sighed, frowning. "This is bad." Seeing Jyn had passed out, he gave an order. "Take care of him, Coda." At the same time, Fred spoke up reproachfully. "You were too rough with our guide." Sandy agreed, adding her opinion. "I thought you were going to eat him alive." Andante laughed and made a protective declaration. "Don't say that. I wouldn't kill Hyoselp." He looked at him, his eyes still holding a glimmer of light. He asked with concern, "Hey, but why are your eyes still like that? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Andante replied coolly, steadying his breath. Flad hesitated before offering some advice. "For the safety of the whole team, if you're about to lose control, you have to tell us beforehand, okay?" He offered a reassuring smile. "Give us some time to run next time, okay? Don't worry. I'm just a little worked up because it's been a while since I've had treatment." Feeling the miraculous recovery, Andante looked around, unable to remember the last time his wounds had healed this quickly. Since when? He dazedly looked over at Jyn, taking in his exhausted figure. A moment later, Jyn groggily came to his senses and sullenly avoided his intense gaze. Then, Jyn curiously asked, "Are you feeling better?" Andante answered honestly, "Not really." Then he described the feeling with a desperate comparison. "It feels like I just crossed a vast desert, only to be given a single sip of water. You get what I'm saying?" A second later, Andante remarked dazedly, "But it's okay. At least you didn't die since you're an S rank." Confused, Jyn slowly lifted his head as dawn began to break on the horizon. Andante turned and gestured, "Let's head back to our rooms. The sun's rising." He blankly recalled the theory. Fundamentally, the guide takes the lead during the treatment process, so an Esper cannot force them to provide it. However, because a guide's power reacts to the Esper, the more deeply a guide interacts with an Esper, the easier it is for more of their energy to be forcibly drawn out without them knowing. However, high-rank guides have better control over their powers. This means that forced treatment can only occur when the Esper's rank is equal to or higher than the guide's. A moment later, Jyn furrowed his brow, analyzing, how can an S-rank guide be forced into treatment by a C-rank Esper? It's impossible. As the thought ended, he ran a hand through his hair in frustration, asking himself again and again, what is he really? After waiting anxiously all week, Jyn sighed in disappointment. That's what I want to ask him, but he hasn't shown up at all this week. His gaze fell upon the file on the desk. Jyn was lost in thought for a long moment. Then, without hesitating, he looked around the empty office and thought to himself, no one usually comes in the morning anyway. Without hesitation, Jyn stealthily opened the file. He carefully sifted through page after page, when suddenly he was startled by what he found it. He quickly scanned the basic information: height, weight, blood type, C-rank Esper, personality, appearance. Nothing stood out. Then he anxiously double-checked. He wouldn't just leave classified information out in the open like this, would he? After that, Jyn decided to drop it. I should just go get some lunch. Just then, the office door swung open. Startled, he dropped the files all over the floor. A leather shoe came into view as he saw a stranger standing in the doorway. Jyn panicked, wondering to himself, oh crap, how am I going to explain this? He noted with a sense of shock, I've never seen those shoes before. Jyn observed the man's luxurious suit, realizing it was completely different from their own guild's style. No one here dresses this sharp. The moment he saw Hei-Trang's face, he froze in shock. Instantly, a memory flooded back to Jyn. I remember seeing him at the guild meeting. A second later, the man bowed elegantly. My apologies. I came to meet an acquaintance. I didn't think anyone else was here, so I didn't knock. Jyn quickly waved his hands. Oh, it's no problem. Hearing this, Hei-Trang smiled warmly. Thank you for your understanding. He then held out a business card and introduced himself. I'm Shin Hei-Trang, a commander at the NSA. Ah, Jyn said, bowing politely. My name is Jin Hyoseop. I'm a guide for Team 1. The man nodded with a smile. Yes, I remember you. At his words, Jin's eyes widened in surprise. You saw me that day? After giving him a once-over, Hei-Trang recalled his exact location at the event. You were standing next to your commander, weren't you? Yes, Jyn thought anxiously. So he really did see me back then. I didn't think he'd actually remember me. Without pausing, he glanced around the empty room and asked, Pardon me, but where are the other members? He answered honestly, They usually come in during the afternoon. Hearing this, Hei-Trang asked pensively, Does that include the commander? Jyn quickly reported, He hasn't come to the office at all this week, so I'm not sure when he'll arrive. At that, Hei-Trang checked his watch and decided to stay. I still have a little time. I'll wait for another 23 minutes. He politely gestured to a seat. Of course, please have a seat. I'll go make some tea. Looking at the files scattered on the floor, Jyn hurriedly began to clean up. I should take care of this mess first. But just as he reached down to pick up a sheet of paper, all the documents suddenly floated into the air. It made him freeze. Hei-Trang asked politely, May I put these on the desk for you? Seeing this special ability, Jyn stammered, Yes. So you're a psychokinetic type Esper. A second later, he nodded thankfully. Thank you. The man replied elegantly. It was nothing. Jyn marveled to himself. Psychokinesis, that's quite rare. He felt an invisible pressure. But I don't feel the least bit lucky to have met him. Meanwhile, Jyn respectfully set the fragrant tea down on the table. Here you are. Hei-Trang nodded. Thank you. After that, neither of them spoke, and the only sound was the ticking of a clock. As the man sipped his tea, his eyes scanned the room. Jyn wondered to himself, he must work somewhere close by. To be willing to come over here in person? But I just can't imagine the two of them being friends. Comparing their statuses, Jyn realized they were worlds apart. One is the commander of the lowest-ranking C-class guild, while the other is the leader of the strongest S-rank guild in Korea. They're from two completely different worlds, and that's not even getting into their appearances. Then Hyoseop suddenly changed the subject with a probing question. He looked straight into the boy's eyes. What's your rank? Hyoseop asked bluntly, What is your rank? Hearing this, Jyn was bewildered, not understanding what was going on. Seeing his confusion, the man added gently, "You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I'm just curious." Then Jin frantically wrestled with his thoughts. If I tell him the truth... After a moment, he hesitantly opened his mouth to answer, Right at that moment, the door suddenly burst open, startling Jin. Seeing Andante rush in, Jin called out in shock, "Commander!" Hyosiop let out a helpless, sarcastic remark. "Good morning. You really should have given me a heads up before stopping by." Hyosiop coldly shot back, "I did." Andante sighed and retorted, "Calling when you're already at the door doesn't count as advance notice." Hyosiop shrugged indifferently. "It does to me." Andante quickly leaned down, asking worriedly, "Never mind that. He must have scared you, didn't he?" "Hyosiop, did he give you a hard time?" Jin calmly replied, "No, I'm fine." Just then, Andante let out a sigh of relief, but didn't forget to bluntly and shamelessly shoo his guest away. "Thank goodness, you have no idea how worried I was. When he said he was in the office, when you see my guide here all by himself, you should know to just leave. What are you doing sitting around waiting for?" Meanwhile, Hyosiop remained seated, unbothered, and then stated his real purpose. "Whatever. I have something to discuss with you." Andante coldly ordered, "Then spit it out." Witnessing this exchange, Jin was bewildered. Is it okay for a C rank to treat an S rank like this? Hyosiop got straight to the point. "A week ago, an unusual gate appeared at the beach you visited." After hearing this, Andante feigned surprise. "Oh, really?" he continued. "I heard it vanished in just 30 minutes. You went inside, didn't you?" Without hesitation, Andante offered a perfectly logical argument to prove his innocence. "And why would I go in there? Who knows? Who knows what could be lurking inside a dungeon that appears out of nowhere? A lowly C rank like me couldn't handle that kind of risk." However, Hyosiop narrowed his eyes in suspicion. "But I thought you enjoyed taking risks. Isn't that why you entered that A-rank dungeon before?" Andante quickly explained, "That was because you said I only needed to clear out the area near the entrance. Besides, if I had to enter a dungeon, I'd go with an A-rank Esper to guarantee my safety." Hyosiop still didn't let up, pressing him further. "You really only stayed by the entrance?" Andante challenged confidently. "Go ask the A-rank Espers who were there. They'll tell you I worked my butt off weakening the monsters for them." At that, Hyosiop changed his line of questioning. He started asking about the whereabouts of the other members. "So where's your guildmate?" Andante complained bluntly, "I'm not sure, he's pretty sneaky." He asked, puzzled, "Why didn't you two go together?" Andante calmly explained, "Our guild prefers to work independently. It would be difficult to get us to team up to enter a dungeon." A second later, Hyosiop delivered his final blow. The core at the center of the dungeon was stolen. Andante raised an eyebrow, retorting to the baseless accusation, "Sounds like you're accusing me of a crime." Hyosiop didn't try to hide it and immediately confirmed, "I am." Andante burst out laughing mockingly. "The way you're talking, do you think I'm an S rank or something? If you don't believe me, go ask the other Espers who were with me." Hyosiop remained firm in his theory. "You could have ordered your guild member to take it." Andante frowned and shot back, "How could he? He's just a C rank too. This isn't funny." As he finished speaking, he put on an offended expression and provoked him, "What is this? Do you actually think we're S-rank Espers? Do you need me to show you our guild's rank information?" Hearing that, he was speechless. Hyosiop stood up and dismissed it with frustration. "Forget it." Seeing his opponent was cornered, Andante smirked victoriously. "So you believe me now?" "Forget it." Standing up without hesitation, Hyosiop stated firmly, "No, I'm leaving, because I know I won't get anything more out of this conversation." Hyosiop left a cryptic warning. "But let me make one thing clear. Andante, the longer the tail, the more likely it is to be stepped on." Andante replied with a bright smile, "But I don't even have a tail." Hyosiop insisted, "Just be careful. Others might not suspect you, but I know something's not right here." Hyosiop turned and added, "My intuition is telling me so." At this, Andante feigned heartbreak and cried out, "You really suspect your own friend? I'm hurt, you know." He bluntly denied it. "Since when were we friends?" "I'm sure you've never once thought of me that way." But Andante persisted in affirming their friendship. "No, you really are my only friend. We've been through so much together. Model." He gleefully brought up that life-or-death situation again. "We were even in the same hole, you know." Hyung blushed with anger. "When are you going to fix that filthy mouth of yours?" Andante chuckled, trying to do damage control. I was just talking about the hole we both found in the grass. He couldn't take it anymore and let out a curse. You're such a bastard. I sincerely hope you get sued for sexual harassment one day. He casually said his goodbyes. Thanks for the encouragement. Hyung didn't forget to add, thanks for the tea. Hyosep, if you want to sue that pervert, just call me. I'll hire a lawyer for you. Without another word, he slammed the door and left. After the guest was gone, Andante grudgingly admitted, we really don't get along, do we? He gave a wry, helpless smile. It was clearly Andante's fault, but he wasn't exactly wrong either. A moment later, Andante glanced at Hyosep, sizing him up. You're not actually going to sue me, are you? Hearing that, Jyn froze for a few seconds. He sat down and gently denied it. No, of course not. Noticing Jin's hesitation, he pouted teasingly. Wait, you're hesitating. Jyn gave up, trying to avoid his gaze. I'm not. Why are you acting like such a jerk today? At that, he let out a happy little chuckle. Jyn secretly watched his expression. He's acting like nothing happened. Am I the only one who feels this awkward? The memory of that intensely hot, healing kiss rushed back, making Jin's face flush. It had been a week since they'd last seen each other after that kiss, but it felt like they had just met yesterday. He remembered the sleepless nights, tossing and turning. He had struggled so much after getting home that day. It was just a healing kiss, the kind everyone does, that's all. But I went through such an unbelievably hard time over it. Suddenly, Andante proposed something. If I'm really bothering you, then just sue me. He became more serious. I realized something after you treated me last time. I think I'm going to become a big problem for you in the future. Jyn was bewildered, not understanding the deeper meaning. What do you mean? Andante then offered some very strange advice. I won't go to jail since I'm an Esper, but if you ask Hyung for help, you could at least get a restraining order against me. Jyn cut him off, exasperated. Wait a minute. I don't understand a single thing you're saying. However, Andante didn't answer, only smiling with satisfaction. He gently stroked his soft hair. A second later, Andante listed a series of perverted acts that he might commit against him. I'm saying if you see me acting strangely, even just a little, you should report me immediately, like if I start stalking or sexually harassing you, for instance, for whatever reason. He explained the rules of human emotion. When you spend enough time with someone, you'll eventually grow to dislike them, or even never want to see them again. So I'm just telling you how to get away in case I become too clingy. Hearing this, Jyn was stunned and commented on his free-spirited nature. But I get the feeling that if I wanted to leave the guild, you'd let me go in a heartbeat. You don't seem like the type of person who'd stop anyone from coming. Or going. That's the complete opposite of clingy. Faced with this sharp insight, Andante rested his chin on his hand and smiled. He praised him. I thought you were a little dense, but it seems I was wrong. Meanwhile, Andante admitted frankly, don't get me wrong. I do like you, but only as an S-class guide who is incredibly beneficial to my guild. Jyn quickly refuted it. But I haven't been any help to you. As soon as the words left his mouth, he shook his head encouragingly. No, you've been a great help. After carefully observing Andante's face, he said, troubled, but your eye color is still the same, and your wounds haven't healed either. Ah, Andante repeated his tired old reason. I already told you. My eye color is like this because I'm always on edge. As for the wounds, they just take a long time to heal. Jyn, unconvinced, continued to press him. What do you mean by that? Seeing how stubborn he was, he pondered for a moment. Then, Andante's lips curled into a seductive smirk as he made an incredibly suggestive offer. I'll tell you. If you agree to share a bed with me. Hearing that phrase, Jyn innocently repeated, share a bed with you? At his adorable reaction, Andante grew restless and prompted, come on, you know what I mean. Jin's face went cold as he stated firmly, no, I have no idea what you mean. Just then he brought up movies to explain. Think of those Korean historical dramas, the scenes where a king shares a bed with his concubine. Have you never seen anything like that before? Jyn calmly explained, I lived abroad for many years, so... At the same time, he grumbled to himself, he's definitely using confusing words because he doesn't want to tell me. A second later, Andante, still not letting it go, pressed on. You've really never seen a Korean drama? Jyn pressed his lips together in silence. He's clearly hiding something. Just then, Flat walked in, complaining. What's with the sudden emergency meeting? Nothing looks that urgent to me. Sandy, panting, whined, "I didn't even want to come here." He sighed and plopped down onto a chair, yawning widely. "So what's going on?" Andante announced gravely. "Listen up, Shin Hee-chang just arrived at our office." He asked in astonishment. "Shin Hee-chang, the director of the NSA?" The twins perceptively noted. He must have found out about something. He probably sniffed something out. Without missing a beat, he gave a command, "Be cautious from now on. All of you will be on standby at the office in the mornings as well. We can't leave our guy here all by himself." After hearing the order, Sandy nodded in agreement. "That's right. This morning only Hyo-seop-hyung was here. He eagerly asked about the private meeting." "So it was just him, Shin Hee-chang, and Flat?" Shokni asked cheerfully, "What happened this morning? Tell us." Without hesitation, Andante angrily recounted the crime of that bastard. He growled, recalling, "He drank Hyo-seop's tea." The group was stunned into silence, then asked, "And?" Andante replied flatly, "That's it." Next, he put on a jealous pout. "I'm the director, and I haven't even gotten to drink the tea that he makes. How could that bastard beat me to it?" Faced with her commander's childish and petty nature, Coda sighed in exasperation. "There he goes again." Seeing Andante ramble on, Jyn face-palmed. At that moment, he smiled and offered, "Would you like me to make you a cup of tea now?" His attitude immediately changed, his eyes lighting up with joy. "Really? I'd love that," Lydon asked, annoyed. "Sometimes I really just want to kill the director." Flash clicked his tongue in agreement. "I get it." Just then, the twins asked in unison, "By the way, Flat and Sandy, have you checked your bank accounts?" Hearing this, he blankly opened his phone. Seeing the enormous number that had just been transferred to his account, Sandy jumped and screamed, "What the hell is this? 198,654,321 won? 100 million won? That's right, from our last bet." A second later, Flash couldn't contain his excitement either. "So we got the money? I didn't think those bastards were that rich." Andante asked suspiciously, "You guys made a bet?" Sandy explained the terms. "Yes, we bet on how long it would take you to get out of the dungeon gate. Those chumps bet $1 billion each, and that you wouldn't make it out alive." Just then, Andante expressed his regret. "You guys should have let me in on the fun. I could have pocketed $2 billion by now." Feeling that the world of these espers was truly insane and bizarre, Jyn thought with a sense of weariness, "I thought they were joking about betting billions. Don't they find any of this ridiculous?" A moment later, he spoke up, demanding his share. "As the key factor in this bet, don't I deserve at least half? Thanks, by the way. If I hadn't worked my ass off, you guys wouldn't have gotten that money." As soon as he finished, the twins were stunned, then started yelling at him, "Are you crazy? Are you insane?" They emphasized in unison, "That was our hard-earned money." Andante nonchalantly dismissed them. "What risk? You guys knew I'd come back." At that moment, Sandy turned and gestured, "Hyung, come sit over here." Ignoring the twins' sorrow, he happily said, "Let's split it. Hand it over." They stared at him resolutely. Andante glared back, warning them. They saw they couldn't argue. The twins sobbed and wailed, "He's really a devil boss." "He is. A cruel boss," Fred asked, confused. "Why are you two so obsessed with money?" Lydia and Dorian began a philosophical lecture on the eternal power of money through the ages. "Because there's never enough money. Even if the world changes, the power of money will always endure." "That's right. There's nothing better than money. Over time, power and influence become meaningless." At this point, Andante turned to them and asked about their next plans. "So are you two going?" They asked in unison, "Go where?" Just then, he revealed an interesting discovery from the dungeon. "I found something pretty interesting in the dungeon, so I told Shinsi to scout it out, but I think he needs some help." They immediately asked, "How much is our fee?" He answered calmly, causing both of them to fall over. "Nothing." They screamed in protest, "Director, are you a scammer? Is this daylight robbery?" Next, Andante made them a promise. "In return, I won't interfere with anything you guys do in there." Hearing this, the twins' eyes lit up as they quickly sealed the deal. "For real? Don't go back on your word, okay?" Andante smiled and confirmed, "Of course, it's true." Witnessing this negotiation, Jyn was silently impressed. "I thought money was their only motivation, but I guess that offer is even more valuable, huh?" He didn't forget to urge them, "All right then. I think you two should get going right now, though. Get your treatment before you head out, okay?" They agreed. "Sounds good." Then Dorian held out his hand and ordered, "Give us the treatment." He nodded, ready. "All right, who's first?" They replied in unison, "Both of us, at the same time." Jin's jaw dropped. "At the same time?" The two brothers nodded. "Yep." As he transferred the energy, Jyn couldn't help but wonder, isn't this normally done with just one esper at a time? After the treatment session was over, he quickly announced, "All done." Seeing the commander staring intently at him, Jyn grew flustered. "Why? Why are you looking at me like that?" Andante looked away and replied, "I'm just curious." Next, he asked the twins suspiciously, how did it feel getting treated by him? They reported enthusiastically, "Treatment is treatment. I feel energized and relaxed." "Yeah, it was really refreshing. Why do you ask? You've had the treatment before, too." Then, Andante mischievously brought up the kiss they'd shared in front of everyone. "That's right. We even kissed passionately in front of everyone that time." Lydia and Dorian sighed, fed up with their boss's eccentricity. "The commander's such a weirdo." "He's always weird." A moment later, Andante mumbled to himself, "That's right, refreshing. That was the feeling." He turned to ask him with a profound look, "So, Hyosef, how do you feel when you perform the treatment? Or, how about afterward?" "Damn," Jyn thought, startled. "He hasn't figured out my side effect, has he?" He then said softly, "I just feel a little tired, that's all." Just then, Andante stared deep into his averting eyes and asked doubtfully, "Really?" Next, he slowly reached out and touched his face. Then Andante whispered his conclusion. "That alluring expression you made back then, was it because of the sensitive spot inside your mouth?"